Chapter 50-46. It was a rather large abyss, and the walls to the left were covered with vines unique to millions of Meng mountains. Dewdrops that looked like tears were flowing on the vines, and a thick fog shrouded the entire abyss. Ordinary eyes would not be able to see through this fog. It was even more impossible to see the dewdrops on the vines, and the reddish-brown mountain rocks beneath the dewdrops. Asterisk whoosh, asterisk a soft sound of air breaking came from above the abyss, and a peerless beauty in plain clothes flew past in a daze. Wasn't that Wuxia? Although Wuxia's current appearance was not as stunning as her original appearance, the faint glow set off her delicate and pretty face, and she still gave off a peerless aura. Even if some people's extraordinariness was concealed, they would still stand out like an all, and Wuxia was as usual. What? How did this happen? Wuxia looked a little flustered, and she thought to herself, how did the Shaman King suddenly fall? Could it be that something happened to Xiao Lang? Could it be that something happened to the new Shaman King as well? Wuxia might not care about the fall of the Shaman King, but she definitely cared about the birth of Shaman King Ming. The direction Wuxia was flying in was naturally where the Buddhist formation was sealed. Although she had left the Buddhist formation a long time ago, she still missed it and did not stray too far away. When she noticed the strange phenomenon in millions of Meng mountains, even if she was from the Fox clan, even if she was from the Qingqiu clan, she still could not let go of the kinship that flowed in her blood. She could not help but fly back. However, just as Wuxia flew past the abyss, there was a loud bang, and dozens of fiery red chains shot out from the abyss like pythons. Not only did they block Wuxia's path forward, they also sealed off her path of retreat. The flames on the chains turned blackish red, and they flickered like the fangs of a venomous snake. Near the flames, the void was slightly distorted, as if it had been burned through by the flames. Ah! Wuxia immediately woke up from her daze. Without thinking, her body swayed. Not only did she not retreat, she also did not rush up into the sky. Instead, her body sank and fell towards the bottom of the abyss. However, before Wuxia's figure disappeared into the bottom of the abyss, she flew out in a panic. At the bottom of the abyss, a huge silver wolf totem flashed and appeared. The wolf head on the wolf totem seemed to be alive. In its bloody mouth, white wolf fangs flashed with a cold light. Boom! At this moment, dozens of chains rapidly intersected above Wuxia's head, emitting rumbling sounds. Flashing silver runes appeared at the top of the chains. These runes gave birth to a powerful binding force that enveloped Wuxia like a heavenly net. Of course, Wuxia wouldn't just sit there and wait for death. She opened her mouth, and a gust of wind suddenly appeared. A huge gust of wind rushed into the sky, trying to break through the net. Unfortunately, although the wind was able to support the heavenly net and even extinguish most of the flames, the silver rune was like a rock in the wind, unshakable. Damn it! This is a talisman from the immortal realm of the human race. Wuxia suddenly understood and couldn't help but curse under her breath. Her hands formed a seal, and a light green demon aura rushed up, barely holding up the chains. She shouted, I wonder which senior from the immortal realm has descended to the mortal world. Why are you blocking my path here? Hee hee. A burst of laughter sounded from the abyss far away. Then, the silver wolf transformed into its demon form and landed in front of Wuxia. It mocked, if a senior from the immortal realm came, would you still be able to stand here safely? Seeing the silver wolf appear, Wuxia's face was filled with surprise. She asked curiously, where are you from? Why are you blocking me here? Huh, you cunning little fox. Don't you see the totem of my snow wolf clan? The snow wolf laughed and said mockingly, do I have to tell you that I came from the 10,000 demon realm? Did my snow wolf king send me to capture you? Snow wolf king. Wuxia's expression tightened. She hurriedly looked around and exclaimed, could it be that the Snow Wolf King can also enter the Dawn Rain continent? That's strange. The snow wolf looked at Wuxia with a strange expression on his face. He said curiously, "The fox clan has always been cunning and cautious. That day, my snow wolf king chased you for 1,000,000 miles and still couldn't capture you. But today, you were so careless. Not only did you not discover my Yuan Shen, you didn't even explore this dangerous abyss and hurriedly flew past. Huh, so that's how it is." At this point, the snow wolf suddenly realized something and laughed. "You actually gave birth to a descendant in the lost land. No wonder your divine ability was greatly reduced. It was caused by a great loss of vitality. Otherwise, with my methods, how could I capture you?" Snow wolf. Wuxia's face was pale. She couldn't stand steadily in the air. She whispered, "I have escaped into the Dawn Rain continent for nearly 1,000 years. I think you have followed me here for 1,000 years. To be honest, I only offended the Snow Wolf King because of some small grudges. After 1,000 years, I think she has already forgotten about it." Unfortunately, before Wuxia could finish, the Snow Wolf laughed and said, "Little fox, don't say any more. All of this is a waste of your effort. Since the Snow Wolf King sent me to capture you, how can I return empty-handed? Besides, how do you know that I almost lost my life in order to find your trace? If I can't capture you, I'll be letting myself down." After speaking, the Snow Wolf didn't waste any more words with Wuxia. He opened his mouth and a mouthful of demonic chi fell into the chain. Boom! The chain fell down like a flood dragon, wanting to firmly bind Wuxia. Wuxia was shocked. She gritted her teeth. Woo! She opened her mouth and a fist-sized demonic pill flew out. This demonic pill fell into the air. The light and shadow swayed and turned into the illusion of a six-tailed fox. At the same time, thousands of illusions were born in the illusion. They overlapped like waves surging towards the snow wolf. When the snow wolf saw the illusion, a silver light flashed in his eyes and his expression became sluggish. Unfortunately, just as the illusion was about to break through the chain, Kachacha, silver lightning swarmed from the chain like a swarm of bees. The talismans that were as thin as ants surged out and shattered the illusion. Ayo! The little fox on top of the demonic pill howled and shrank back into the demonic pill. The silver light in the snow wolf's eyes also disappeared. The snow wolf was still in shock and said, "Damn it." Then, with a wave of the snow wolf's hand, a fiery red chain sprang out from Wuxia's back and turned into a long spear. Pooh! It pierced Wuxia's collarbone. Ah! Wuxia cried out in pain. Her charming body went limp in midair. The demonic pill's brilliance dimmed and fell into her mouth, hee. Seeing the chain penetrate Wuxia's body, the snow wolf knew that the situation was over. He couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Little fox, you really deserve to be unlucky. I just came from the Yilin continent to the Lost Lands and I already sensed your aura." Unfortunately, before the snow wolf could finish speaking, a spiritual will that was even more ferocious than a meteor came crashing down. The huge force not only trapped the snow wolf, but the chi wave also blocked the snow wolf's words. Who? The snow wolf was shocked. He hurriedly urged the chain to fly out, wanting to block the spiritual will. However, wherever the spiritual will passed, boom! A loud sound rang out and the chain flew out like wild grass. Kachacha. At the same time, in the sky, the thunderclouds surged forward faster than the wind. 10 thick lightning bolts came crashing down from the sky, striking directly at the snow wolf. The snow wolf didn't dare to be slow. His body fell rapidly and the wolf totem that was blocking Wuxia's body shot up into the sky. Countless demonic chi and the power of the stars and moon surged out from the wolf's head, transforming into a huge wolf head that pounced towards the lightning bolts. Pu. Where the lightning bolts landed, it was as if they had hit a broken piece of cotton. Not only was the wolf head destroyed, but after the wolf head was destroyed, the lightning bolts were like swords that ruthlessly struck the wolf totem. The unbreakable wolf totem in the eyes of the snow wolf instantly turned into fragments that floated down into the abyss. Roar! A furious roar sounded from afar. Amidst the rumbling of thunder, Xiaohua's figure arrived while stepping on thunder. Xiaohua! Jiu Xia almost blurted out. However, before the sound came out, Jiu Xia immediately suppressed it with all his might. Although his eyes were filled with ecstasy, he still clenched his teeth and didn't shout out. Seeing the bloodstains on Jiu Xia's body, Xiaohua felt a burst of heartache for no reason. He roared, "Damn it! Even the Snow Wolf King was killed by this Xiao. You, a little snow wolf, dare to show off in front of this old man? If not for the fact that I couldn't see through your goal, this old man would have killed you in the Woman Mountain Range." As he spoke, Xiaohua waved his right hand. A big hand that was like thunder grabbed out. Under the big hand, the space around the snow wolf was imprisoned. The snow wolf couldn't even move. As the big hand fell, the snow wolf was caught in the big hand. Light and shadow flowed and demonic qi overflowed. The snow wolf was about to be crushed into meat paste by Xiaohua. Xiao! Taoist Xiao! You are Taoist Xiao! Hearing this, the snow wolf couldn't help but be stunned. When he woke up, he exclaimed, "Taoist Xiao, spare my life, Taoist Xiao, brother-in-law." Seeing Xiaohua so powerful, Jiu Xia was almost drunk. She moaned and said in a low voice, let her go. Oh! Xiaohua was stunned and looked at Jiu Xia in disbelief. However, when Xiaohua saw Jiu Xia's figure clearly, he was shocked again. His eyes revealed disbelief and a deep sense of loss. Because he could see that Jiu Xia's primordial yin had been lost. Brother-in-law. Jiu Xia's face showed shyness and shame. With a voice as low as a mosquito's, she said, "You can see it too. I just left my bloodline around Flowing Cloud Lake a month ago. Don't you humans always say that you have to accumulate good karma for your children? I'll spare her life for the sake of my descendants." Xiaohua frowned. Looking at this Jiu Xia who was so beautiful that she left a deep impression in his mind, even when he was having sex with Zi Ming, he asked in a low voice, "She is the snow wolf of the 10,000 demon realm. Are you sure you want to let her live? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5047. Brother-in-law. Although Jiu Xia's face was pale, her charming smile was still charming. She said coquettishly, "Didn't I tell you before? There is something I need your help with. I thought you would only be able to help me after 100,000 years. I didn't expect that in just a few hundred years, you would be able to kill the great Saint Snow Wolf King. Without the Snow Wolf King, how could I be afraid of the Snow Wolf clan? This Snow Wolf was just following orders. If it wasn't for my weak body today, how could she have succeeded?" Xiaohua heard and suddenly understood. He thought for a moment and nodded, "So this is what you want me to do?" I thought. "Forget it, since this is your choice, I will listen to you." With that, Xiaohua raised his hand and grabbed at the air. The fiery red chain slowly shrank under the thunder and was pulled out of Jiu Xia's body. Streams of blood dripped down from Jiu Xia's body and the chains. Xiaohua hurriedly took out a pill from the space and handed it to Jiu Xia, "Take the pill first." Jiu Xia smiled sweetly, "Brother-in-law, I am from the Fox clan. I can't take your human pill." "Don't worry." Huang Tong also flew over. Looking at this beautiful woman, she said lightly, "The pill that Taoist Xiao gave you was really refined for the demon clan." Oh. Jiu Xia was surprised. She took the pill and looked at Xiaohua strangely, "Brother-in-law, it has only been a few hundred years. You are actually so powerful. Moreover, you can refine pills for my demon clan. After saying that, Wuxia suddenly understood. She looked at Xiaohua and said, I understand now. Brother-in-law has been stranded in the demon realm all these years. No wonder you could kill the Snow Wolf King. Io, that's not right. It has only been a few hundred years. How can brother-in-law be so powerful? Wuxia kept calling him brother-in-law. It was as intimate as when she was with Hongxia Fairy. Xiaohua smiled and said, we will talk about this later. Brother-in-law will give you a few small surprises. Hee hee. Wuxia took the pill and clapped her hands, brother-in-law has given me enough surprises today. And to be able to see brother-in-law, I am also very surprised. I don't need any other surprises. Xiaohua's mood was slightly better. He turned to look at Snow Wolf, his eyes like lightning. Looking at Xiaohua's aura that was similar to that of the Thunder God, how was it the same as before in the Yilan continent? Snow Wolf couldn't help but tremble as he begged, Senior, please spare my life. Senior, please spare my life. Xiaohua said, this old man has traveled with you for several years, so I've long known that you're a demon. The only reason we haven't eliminated you is because you've never harmed any human cultivators. However, you have violated this old man's greatest taboo today. You may be spared from death, but you cannot be spared from punishment. Yes, thank you for your forgiveness, Senior. Snow Wolf was overjoyed when he heard this. He kowtowed and cried out. Let this old man ask you. Xiaohua asks, how did you pass through the Netherworld Blood Sea? Did anyone else pass? Snow Wolf didn't dare to delay and hurriedly told him what he had seen. Hearing that the Snow Wolf actually had a talisman from the immortal realm, Xiaohua already understood. However, he still pretended to be suspicious as he asked, where did you get the immortal talisman? Snow Wolf didn't dare to hide anything and hurriedly said, that was given by my great sage. According to the great sage, enough, there's no need to say any more. Xiaohua saw that Snow Wolf was about to reveal the immortal envoy's human form and hurriedly waved his hand. Snow Wolf King has already been executed. This old man won't mention this matter anymore. If you don't harass the Fox clan, this old man will definitely not make things difficult for you. Yes, this junior understands. Snow Wolf didn't dare to say more and only kowtowed without saying anything. Xiaohua handed the chain to Huang Tong and said to him, fellow Taoist, please use this chain to imprison this Snow Wolf in a secret place as punishment. No problem. This old man is the best at this. Huang Tong laughed loudly and took the chain. With a grab of his phoenix claws, he took the soulless Snow Wolf. With a flap of his wings, he disappeared in a moment. After Huang Tong left, Xiaohua said to Taoist Witch, fellow Taoist, help me keep watch. I have something to explain to Lady Wuxia. No problem. Taoist Witch's figure flashed and rushed into the sky, standing among the clouds. Xiaohua looked around solemnly. With a wave of his hand, he released the seal of overturning the sea. Then, he took out the jade talisman and set up the complete capital sky star array. Brother-in-law. Seeing Xiaohua so serious, Wuxia was also stunned. She whispered, what are you doing? Do you have a little surprise for me? Don't worry, it's definitely a surprise. Xiaohua patiently set up the star array and used his divine sense to look around. After confirming that there was no consciousness or aura, he said to Wuxia, I should have given you the complete thing, but with your current cultivation, I'm afraid you won't be able to keep it. So, stand still. As he spoke, Xiaohua looked at Wuxia. Wuxia was stunned and also looked at Xiaohua. She was trying her best to hide it, but when she saw Xiaohua's eyes, she couldn't help but reveal the strong feelings in her heart. However, just as Wuxia was in a daze, a thick crystal thread appeared between Xiaohua's eyebrows. This crystal thread was nine-colored and shone brilliantly as it fell between Jiu Xia's eyebrows. Boom! Countless lights, images, and talismans turned into a turbulent wave that crashed into Jiu Xia's mind. Huh? Jiu Xia cried out in surprise, then her face turned solemn. She didn't dare to be negligent and immediately flashed with nine-colored light, revealing her six-tailed fox form. She assumed a strange posture and allowed Xiaohua to transmit the Qingqiu lineage's inheritance into her mind. At the same time, circles of ripples turned into the shape of a fox and rippled in all directions. However, this ripple was blocked by the capital star array and couldn't leak out at all. It could only roar and brew within the array. After a full hour, the light around Jiu Xia slowly retracted into her body. She then opened her eyes, which were filled with absolute fanaticism and an indescribable realization. Jiu Xia transformed into her human form and respectfully knelt on the ground, kowtowing. Jiu Xia greets the Sacred King. Sacred King. Xiaohua was stunned and hurriedly helped Jiu Xia up, saying, "This Xiao is just Xiaohua, not some sacred king. This is your Qingqiu lineage's inheritance. This Xiao is just returning it to you with the hand of heaven." He. Jiu Xia stood up, the respect on her face completely gone. She then smiled faintly. "This little sister won't mention this anymore. You'll know in the future. However, this little sister has a small request that I hope brother-in-law can agree to." "Say it." Xiaohua nodded. "As long as it's not too difficult for me, I'll agree to it." Xiaohua's words had a double meaning, but the sourness in his heart was real. After all, this peerless woman in front of him had already left her bloodline in Million Meng Mountains before he returned to Dawn Rain Continent. Thinking back to Jiu Xia's little flirtation with him back then, it was impossible for Xiaohua not to feel a little disappointed. Jiu Xia was so sharp. Seeing Xiaohua like this, she felt sweetness and joy in her heart. However, her face still blushed. She lowered her head and said, "Brother-in-law, this little sister knows that the love between you and big sister is stronger than gold. Although this little sister has some small expectations for you, this little sister is afraid that big sister will think too much. Brother-in-law has been gone for many years without any news. This little sister thought that she would never see brother-in-law again." Xiaohua's words had a double meaning, but Jiu Xia's words were naked. Of course, it was this kind of naked that covered up the truth of the matter. The entire scene became awkward in an instant. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand, saying, "Jiu Xia, you're thinking too much, is that so?" Jiu Xia raised her head. The pair of big watery eyes on her charming face were incomparably alluring. She seemed to be asking a question, but also seemed to be talking to herself. She murmured, "Brother-in-law didn't think too much." Cough cough. Xiaohua didn't dare to look at Jiu Xia anymore. He hurriedly turned his face and coughed a few times, asking, that brother-in-law, who is it?" Pfft. Jiu Xia covered her mouth and laughed, "The so-called brother-in-law, I'm afraid that brother-in-law won't be able to see him. Last night, I don't know what strange phenomenon occurred in the starry sky formation. This little sister is anxious to settle down her son. Your brother-in-law has already fallen in the millions of Meng Mountains." Xiaohua suddenly understood that Jiu Xia was talking about soul beasts. However, he looked at Jiu Xia's smiling face and asked curiously, "He has already fallen, but you're actually not sad?" "Brother-in-law, this little sister is a fox, not a human." Jiu Xia smiled and said, "In this little sister's eyes, falling is not the end. After all, we already have a son. This son is his beginning. This little sister taking good care of our son is the best repayment for him. Of course, this little sister's heart is also sad. However, in the eyes of others, isn't this sadness just a joke? Why should this little sister let others know? If this little sister's heart is in a mess, how could she not notice and fall into the snow wolf's trap?" "Jiu Xia, brother-in-law has misunderstood you. Xiao Hua was also considered a great sage of the human race, but in front of Jiu Xia of Qingqiu Mountain, he was still deceived enough. He hurriedly said, "If you have something to say, just say it. As long as brother-in-law can do it, I will definitely not refuse." "He, brother-in-law is thinking too much." Jiu Xia smiled and said, "This little sister just wants brother-in-law to take out Qingqiu Mountain's Xinyu and let this little sister comprehend it." "Oh, brother-in-law understands." Xiao Hua's face reddened, and he hurriedly put his hand into his bosom as if he wanted the Xinyu. He said again, "Jiu Xia, if it's possible, I'll give this to you." "Don't, brother-in-law." Jiu Xia pursed her lips and smiled, "This Xinyu was originally obtained by you, so it's naturally yours. Why are you giving it to me? Moreover, didn't you say so yourself? This item is of great importance, and with this little sister's strength, I can't protect it. Rather than leaving it here and harming this little sister, why don't brother-in-law hold it for this little sister?" But brother-in-law is going to ascend soon." Xiao Hua's hand stopped there, and he did not take out the Xinyu. He frowned and said. Jiu Xia's face was filled with ecstasy, and she said with a smile, "Then this little sister congratulates brother-in-law first. Brother-in-law is really a genius. This is only a few hundred years since we last met, and you're actually going to ascend. This little sister doesn't even dare to dream of it. However, brother-in-law doesn't need to worry. If brother-in-law doesn't take the Xinyu, this little sister won't be able to find you in the future. If brother-in-law takes the Xinyu, this little sister will be able to go to the immortal world to find brother-in-law." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-48. Jiu Xia's ecstasy was real. She had made up her mind not to see Xiao Hua again, but she didn't expect him to save her as soon as he came out of the Buddhist formation. Now, he even gave her the inheritance of Qingqiu Mountain, and Xinyu of Qingqiu Mountain's lineage. How could she not know? Her karma with this man had just begun. "You're thinking too much. I'm going to the immortal world, and you're ascending to the Demon Alliance." Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. As he spoke, he took out the nine-tailed fox sculpture. As soon as the nine-tailed fox Xinyu appeared, the fluctuations in the entire formation boiled violently and surged toward Xinyu. Jiu Xia opened her mouth and spat out a breath of clear air, which fell into the nine-tailed fox Xinyu. Xinyu let out a roar, and the phenomenon that had appeared in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm also appeared at the same time. Jiu Xia didn't dare to be negligent. She swayed and fell into Xinyu's nine-colored brilliance. Whoosh! The nine-tailed fox sculpture suddenly seemed to come alive. The nine-colored halo quickly retracted, and a living one-tailed Jiu Xia appeared before Xiao Hua's eyes. Then, 2 tails, 3 tails, until 9 tails. After 9 tails, countless thin thunderbolts turned into 9 colors and entered Jiu Xia's body, and the fluctuations that had been overflowing in the capital star formation were all swept away. While Jiu Xia was comprehending Xinyu's various realms, Xiao Hua wasn't idle either. He had been practicing Qingqiu Mountain's inheritance, and seeing Jiu Xia using the nine-tailed fox's body to comprehend, he hurriedly sat down cross-legged and opened his eyes, quietly watching everything that was happening before him. The nine-tailed fox's various color changes, and asterisk were all captured by Xiao Hua's eyes. Although it was only a few hours, Xiao Hua felt that he had gained much more than if he had comprehended it himself for 100 years. In particular, with the comprehension of Jiu Xia's body, Xiao Hua's foundation and direction of cultivation of Qingqiu Mountain's secret technique would not be wrong. It was only a matter of time before he succeeded. Sigh. Seeing that Jiu Xia had returned to her human form, the brilliance around her receding, and her previous charm no longer exposed, Xiao Hua sighed thoughtfully. Jiu Xia. Rather than saying that I helped you, it's better to say that you helped me. He, brother-in-law. Jiu Xia smiled and said, you and I are a family, so why do we have to separate? As he said, Jiu Xia passed Xingyu to Xiao Hua again and said, brother-in-law, you accept this item. From now on, if it weren't for little sister. Oh, even if little sister is right in front of you, you can't take it out. Brother-in-law will naturally know the secrets of this item in the future. Xiao Hua originally didn't want to take it, but after hearing Jiu Xia's words, he nodded solemnly and said, brother-in-law knows. I won't let anyone else see it. That's right, even big sister can't do it. Jiu Xia blinked mischievously and smiled. This is a little secret between me and brother-in-law. Huh, brother-in-law knows. Xiao Hua nodded and kept Xingyu. After thinking for a moment, he asked, brother-in-law just came back from Yilan continent, I wonder. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, Jiu Xia's face also showed an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, brother-in-law, little sister also has a lot of things to do. After parting with brother-in-law that day, other than asking sword cultivators to inquire about brother-in-law's whereabouts, I didn't pay attention to sword cultivators and Dao cultivators anymore. Little sister also doesn't know how big sister is now. Alright. Xiao Hua nodded and said helplessly, after brother-in-law is done, I'll go find her. Ah. Jiu Xia said curiously, why is brother-in-law going after you're done? Could it be that brother-in-law has something important to do? Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart moved and he nodded. That's right, brother-in-law does have something important that needs your help. Ah. You need my help? Jiu Xia was even more stunned and hurriedly asked, brother-in-law, quickly say it. Xiao Hua didn't hide much from Jiu Xia and told her about his experience and the matters of the 3 continents. Hearing this, the little fox's heart shook. She didn't expect Xiao Hua to have such a fortuitous encounter and even more didn't expect that at the end of the sea, there was an immortal formation that no one would have thought of. Moreover, on the other side of the immortal formation, hundreds of millions of lives were already in danger and the entire 3 continents had already fallen into an apocalyptic disaster. Brother-in-law. Jiu Xia didn't need Xiao Hua to say more and immediately nodded. Little sister understands. Although little sister hasn't contacted sword cultivators for a long time, little sister still has some influence over there. Speaking up to hear, Jiu Xia was a little sad and said in a low voice, actually, little sister doesn't need to do anything. Brother-in-law is now the supreme of the human race. As long as he calls out, who would dare to disobey? Xiao Hua smiled and said, brother-in-law has never dared to have too many extravagant hopes for people's hearts. After all, the 3 continents aren't Daybreak Continent. The cultivators of Daybreak Continent won't take the Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sect, and demon race of the 3 continents seriously. Therefore, brother-in-law still hopes that you can help brother-in-law. However, before you help brother-in-law, you'd better take care of your body first. This matter has already reached the final step. We can't be too anxious. That's true. Your little sister's brother-in-law. If little sister doesn't help you, who else should I help? I'm afraid there aren't many people in the entire Daybreak Continent who are of the same mind as brother-in-law. Jiu Xia smiled faintly. Even the gloomy horizon was about to clear up. But without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Jiu Xia rolled her eyes again. Using her small hand to cover her small mouth, she laughed and said, brother-in-law is still the one who can endure silently. If it was little sister, how could little sister have mingled with a group of nascent soul and gold core cultivators for so long? I'm afraid that I would have already used magic to force Du Peng. Sigh, brother-in-law doesn't dare. Xiao Hua turned his head and thought about it. He was really a little scared. Brother-in-law is afraid that you'll mess things up. You can't pass through the restrictions of Wuming Mountain Range and Million Mountain Range. But even so, brother-in-law. Speaking up to hear, Xiao Hua was a little hesitant. Oh, brother-in-law. Jiu Xia asked curiously, what did you encounter in the restrictions of Woman Mountain Range? But I saw that Snow Wolf was able to pass through with the help of some immortal talisman. With brother-in-law's ability, there shouldn't be any difficulties. Hee, of course. Xiaohua thought for a moment and decided to hide it. He said with a smile, although brother-in-law encountered some difficulties, we still came here. These difficulties have nothing to do with you. Brother-in-law won't tell you in detail. All right then. Jiu Xia said with a smile, little sister won't ask anymore. Little sister will go to the place of sword cultivators to take a look and see if I can find any records of immortal formations. Jiu Xia, your body is weak. Take these things. Xiaohua hurriedly took out a few storage rings from the space and handed them to Jiu Xia. Cultivate along the way. If it wasn't for the important matter, brother-in-law wouldn't be willing to let you run around so much. Thank you, brother-in-law. Seeing Xiaohua's concern, Jiu Xia's heart was as sweet as honey. After she took the storage rings and scanned them with her elemental sense, she looked at Xiaohua in shock and shouted, brother-in-law, you're a millionaire. So many good things, are they all for me? Of course they're all for you. If it's not enough, I have more here. Xiaohua said with a smile. No matter how he looked at Jiu Xia, he was happy. Enough. Jiu Xia took out an immortal peach with a smile and ate it in big bites in front of Xiaohua. She didn't even have time to wipe off the peach juice that splashed on her face. I forgot. Xiaohua patted his head and took out a blood bead from the space and handed it to Jiu Xia. This is also for you. What's this? Jiu Xia didn't understand. However, when she took the blood bead and saw a nine-tailed fox's shadow inexplicably changing inside the blood bead, she couldn't help but cry out in shock, Nine-tailed fox bloodline. How is this possible? Brother-in-law went to the legacy realm. Xiaohua said proudly, when I saw this bloodline, I thought of you, brother-in-law. Xiao. Jiu Xia's body trembled. She didn't care about the falling immortal peach and flew over while shouting, you're really too good to me. Cough cough. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and blocked her. Looking at Jiu Xia's pink face and red lips, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with a dry mouth, it's nothing. You and I are a family. Brother-in-law should do something for you. No. The more Xiaohua acted like this, the more Jiu Xia wanted to take advantage of him. She said coquettishly, you must give me a kiss. Otherwise, this little sister will feel apologetic. Brother-in-law is really too good to me. Go. Facing Jiu Xia's coquettishly pouting, Xiaohua suddenly felt that he had some resistance. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride from the bottom of his heart. He waved his hand and said, if your sister knew, she would be angry, hee. Jiu Xia smiled faintly as if she saw a little rooster that she could secretly eat. She stopped and asked, brother-in-law, this little sister won't ask about other things. That Princess Xia that you mentioned just now, Xiaohua was dumbstruck. He looked at Jiu Xia and shouted in the same inconceivable way, you. I didn't say anything. Brother-in-law. Jiu Xia turned a blind eye and said with a smile, do you want to hide the matters of men from us women? Even if you didn't say anything, how could we not know? Damn it! Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. Like a defeated rooster, he drooped his head. Even Jiu Xia could see through it with a glance. How could Fairy Hongxia not see through it? Although Xiaohua didn't intend to hide anything, seeing this situation, he was also quite disheartened. Hee, brother-in-law. Looking at such a cute Xiaohua, Jiu Xia rolled her eyes and said, how about this, don't be in a hurry to find sister. First, you should clarify the matters of the 3 continents. After you have some clues, you can go find sister to discuss it and tell her everything about Princess Xia. Perhaps sister is dissatisfied with you, but seeing you rushing about for the sake of the billions of people in the 3 continents, she wouldn't blame you too much, right? After her anger subsides and the immortal formation is broken, Fairy Hong Xia and Princess Zi Xia will also meet. Wouldn't that be perfect? What do you think? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-49. Alright. Xiaohua obviously didn't know what Jiu Xia was thinking. He could only nod and say, then I'll listen to you and not tell your sister about this. Hee, Xiaohua is so cute. He's already the supreme of the human race, yet he still cares so much about Fairy Hong Xia's thoughts. Jiu Xia couldn't help but laugh in her heart. If I, Ziming, Fairy Hong Xia, and Princess Zixia were placed together, I wonder what kind of expression he would have. Alas, what a pity, Ziming is destined to be a sacrifice. My, hope is probably still in the future, right? Thinking of this, Jiu Xia was about to speak when Xiaohua urged her again, oh right, Jiu Xia, while I'm here, you should fuse with that bloodline. Don't let anything go wrong when you fuse alone. Jiu Xia smiled and said, brother-in-law, what bad idea are you thinking of now? What bad idea? Xiaohua was stunned and said curiously, aren't I afraid something will happen to you? I'll help you guard. Hee, brother-in-law, fusing with the bloodline is different from comprehending Xingyu. You have to be completely naked. Jiu Xia said with a sly face. Cough cough. When Xiaohua heard this, he naturally thought of the situation when Feng Wu achieved the holy bloodline. He hurriedly coughed and said, brother-in-law isn't from the demon race, so I don't know about this. Don't blame me. Alas, brother-in-law. Jiu Xia said with melancholy, how good would it be if you came back a few years earlier? That. Xiaohua retreated and didn't dare to say anything more. He waved his hand and said, Jiu Xia, if you can fuse with the bloodline, do it as soon as possible. Brother-in-law still has things to do, don't worry, brother-in-law. Jiu Xia saw that she had loosened the reins only to grasp them better and didn't dare to make Xiaohua feel disgusted. She hurriedly nodded and said, if it was before, I definitely wouldn't dare to rashly nod my head. But now, I've already comprehended the Green Hill 9 transformations. It can be said that the direction of cultivation is already stable. This bloodline is just a strong cornerstone that allows me to cultivate the Green Hill 9 transformations. Of course, I'm currently weak and don't dare to fuse with it easily. After a period of time, I'll find a secret place to fuse with the bloodline. There won't be any mistakes. That's good. Xiaohua, who had already started to tidy up the capital star array, said, if you feel unsafe, brother-in-law can give you some more. Xiaohua originally wanted to say the demonic beasts, but he suddenly remembered that the Kunlun mirror wasn't by his side, so he couldn't take out the demonic beasts from the space. He immediately shut his mouth, but a moment later, he thought of another matter. Thus, Xiaohua stopped again and said helplessly, sigh, brother-in-law is really old and forgetful. I almost forgot something just now. Could it be a surprise? Jiu Xia swallowed the 9-tailed fox bloodline and asked with a smile. It's not much of a surprise. I just want you to help me see how I should deal with this fox clan. As Xiaohua spoke, he took out a spirit storage bag and took out the great demon who called himself Hu Qi from the Shenhua continent. Hu Mao came out and did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed and said, Great Sage Xiao, why have you called me out? Jiu Xia was dumbstruck. She looked at Hu Qi in disbelief. Her little mouth was wide open. Xiaohua had given her too many surprises. So many that she couldn't even react. Didn't this old man say before? I don't know your background, so I can't deal with you. Here, this is my little sister. Let's see how she deals with you. Xiaohua said flatly, his manner as dignified as a great sage of the human race. Yes, this little one understands. Hu Qi did not dare to say anything else. He followed Xiao Hua's gaze to Jiu Xia. Hu Qi was immediately dumbfounded. However, he made a decision in an instant. He prostrated himself in the air and kowtowed. So it's Miss Jiu. This little one kowtows to Miss Jiu. He. Jiu Xia was unmoved by Hu Qi's kowtow. She sneered and said, Hu Qiong, this world is really small. After thousands of years, you still fell into my hands. Back then, when you forced me to kill me, and when you joined the Snow Wolf King and told the Snow Wolf King all the secrets of the Qingqiu clan, you never thought that such a day would come. Even though he was called Hu Qi, he was actually called Hu Qiong. He prostrated himself in the air but did not plead, and instead said flatly, Miss Jiu, I'm sure you know better than I do what the Qingqiu clan is like. Yesterday, I joined the 10,000 Demon Realms Great Sage of the Demon Race, and today, you joined the 10,000 Demon Realms Great Sage of the Human Race. You and I are both struggling at death's door, doing our best to continue the Qingqiu clan's bloodline. Back then, when I forced you to kill you, I was forced to do so by the Snow Wolf King. As for the secrets of the Qingqiu clan, don't worry, Miss Jiu. I won't tell anyone even if I die. At that, Hu Qiong even looked up slightly at Xiao Hua. There was no telling if he was trying to sow discord or prove his worth. Seeing that both Xiao Hua and Jiu Xia were silent, Hu Qiong continued, as for today, I won't say much since I've fallen into your hands. There's a saying among humans that the victor is king and the loser is a bandit. Since the great sage of the human race has handed me over to you, you may do as you please. He. There was no way Jiu Xia did not know what Hu Qiong was up to, and laughed coldly. Hu Qiong, if you didn't reveal Green Hill's secret, how would the Snow Wolf King know where I am, and why would she keep chasing me? Don't try to avoid the important and dwell on the trivial. There are many secrets of the Qingqiu clan, and if you reveal my whereabouts, you're revealing the secrets of the Qingqiu clan. Hu Qiong glanced coolly at Jiu Xia and smiled. If that's the case, Miss Jiu, it seems that you've revealed more secrets of the Qingqiu clan than I did. Damn it. Jiu Xia's face flushed. She knew that Hu Qiong was referring to the nine-tailed fox's corolla, and that he had mistakenly assumed that she had offered it to Xiao Hua in exchange for protection. Jiu Xia wanted to retort, but she could not help blushing when she realized that Hu Qiong was speaking the truth. Moreover, the corolla's power did not completely vanish from Xiao Hua's body, and as a member of the Qingqiu clan, Hu Qiong could tell at once. Jiu Xia could not retort. After some thought, Jiu Xia said, Hu Qiong, you're speaking the truth. After all, the Qingqiu clan is now in decline, and the death of another would weaken our bloodline by another notch. That's why I'm betting with your life, betting that I wouldn't kill you. From the bottom of my heart, I really don't want to kill you. It's not just because of your bloodline, but also because I need help. You're a member of the Qingqiu clan, and 100 times more suitable than other demon spirits. That's why congratulations, you've won the bet. Thank you, Miss Jiu. Hu Qiong's face did not show any joy, and instead kowtowed to express his gratitude. But Jiu Xia changed the topic. You're now a great demon, and far from being subdued by us, so I'll have to leave a seal on your body. Hu Qiong was not surprised, and nodded, do as you wish, Miss Jiu. Brother-in-law. Jiu Xia smiled, I'll leave this to you. Huh, no problem. Xiao Hua smiled, and opened his mouth. The chanting of gods and ghosts came out of his mouth, and 7 strange green runes appeared out of thin air. Huh! Hu Qiong's heart shuddered when he saw the runes appear, and an indescribable terror could not help but surge out, as if the 7 runes could easily send him into the underworld. Hu Qiong's fear did not stop there. Tens of thousands of soul strands grew out of Xiao Hua's forehead, and like tentacles, the soul strands touched various parts of the runes at lightning speed. A moment later, an obscure fluctuation with an inexplicable soul power was born from 6 of the runes, and the 9 runes slowly transformed into 6 fist-sized green skeletons. Great! Great sage! Hu Qiong could not help but whisper, "You don't have to do this, do you? This humble one is from a side branch of the Qingqiu clan, and although my bloodline cannot compare to Miss Jiu's, but since this humble one has pledged allegiance to Miss Jiu, it's better to be safe than sorry." Xiao Hua urged his soul technique, and his voice was like a ghost's. Following his cold snort, the 6 skeletons rushed to various parts of Hu Qiong's body. At the same time, the 7th rune began to spin, and a vortex as thin as the tip of a needle appeared at the center of the rune. As soon as the vortex appeared, an equally thin suction force appeared and fell on Hu Qiong's head, whoosh whoosh. The suction force was as thin as a needle at first, but it grew stronger with a swishing sound, and finally completely enveloped Hu Qiong. At the same time, the 6 skeletons that fell on Hu Qiong's body disappeared, and then a faint blood shadow was slowly pulled out of Hu Qiong's body by the suction force, and was sucked into the rune. When the shadow fell into the rune shook violently, and waves of dark green light fell into the void. Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. Pa! The rune shattered, and a wisp of soul flame was born from within. Hu Qiong did not feel anything wrong, but when he looked at the wisp of soul flame, he had a strange feeling. It was as if he was divided into 2, one standing here, and the other standing in the wisp of soul flame, and both of them were looking at each other. He he. Jiu Xia smiled, and said, "Thank you, brother-in-law. With your soul-capturing technique, that old thing will have to listen to me for the rest of his life." He he. Xiao Hua laughed. The wonder of this technique is not only that Hu Qiong's life is in your hands, but also that the power of the restrictive technique increases with your cultivation. If you don't have 10 times your power, don't even think about breaking it. Great sage! Hu Qiong could not help wailing softly, what are you afraid of?" Jiu Xia glared at him. "As long as you do your best for Qingqiu Mountain and don't betray me, it's no different from not having this restriction. Moreover, Hu Qiong, there are some things I can't tell you right now. This isn't just a restriction, it's also a test. As long as you pass the test, there will definitely be a place for you in Qingqiu Mountain in the future. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-50. How could Hu Qiong take Jiu Xia's words seriously? He only thought that it was an empty promise and smiled bitterly. "Yes, I understand. Get up." Jiu Xia didn't explain. She waved her hand to indicate for Hu Qiong to stand up, and then she said to Xiao Hua, "Brother-in-law, little sister will take Hu Qiong over first. Little sister will notify brother-in-law once the matter of the immortal formation is settled." "Okay." Xiao Hua smiled and kept the capital star array and the seal of overturn the sea. He said, "Thank you for your trouble. He, we're family, don't worry." Jiu Xia pursed her lips and smiled. This isn't the 10,000 demon realm." After the restriction was removed, Hu Qiong looked around and exclaimed in surprise. Jiu Xia glanced at him and said faintly, "Of course it's not the 10,000 demon realm. There's the Snow Wolf King in the 10,000 demon realm, how can I stay here? This is, the Dawn Rain continent. There's no demon saint." But Hu Qiong wanted to say something, but when he looked at Xiao Hua, he hesitated. Xiao Hua glanced at him and did not ask more. He nodded at Jiu Xia and flew to the back earth stockade. After Xiao Hua left, Hu Qiong whispered, "Miss Jiu, when are we returning to the 10,000 demon realm? Why are we returning to the 10,000 demon realm?" Jiu Xia did not understand. Hu Qiong looked around and whispered, "Miss Jiu, I won't hide it from you. There's a reason why I joined the Snow Wolf King. Oh. What's the reason? Jiu Xia was surprised when she saw how mysterious Hu Qiong was. Miss Jiu, please wait. Hu Qiong looked around worriedly and raised his hand to set up a restriction. He then took out a fox-shaped object and handed it to Jiu Xia. Miss Jiu, what do you think this is? See. Jiu Xia saw the object and gasped, relic. Relic realm? That's right. Hu Qiong said respectfully, this object was originally in the hands of the Snow Wolf King in the 10,000 Demon Realm. I joined the Snow Wolf King for this object. Unfortunately, after I obtained it, I was captured by the great sage of the human clan before I could find the entrance from the 10,000 Demon Realm to the Legacy Realm. Now that I have pledged my allegiance to Lady Jiu, I shall offer this item to Lady Jiu to show my loyalty. When Jiu Xia received the Fox clan's inherited demon artifact, his heart was as clear as fire. Hu Qiong must have already been to the Legacy World. Furthermore, Xiaohua must have taken away the bloodline before Hu Qiong arrived at the Legacy World. Otherwise, Hu Qiong wouldn't have given the inherited demon artifact to him so easily. However, Jiu Xia was still ecstatic when she received it. She hurriedly asked, since you're in a hurry to return to the 10,000 Demon Realm, don't tell me you haven't found the entrance from the 10,000 Demon Realm to the Legacy Realm. I did find some clues, but I can't be sure. Hu Qiong said as he handed over something that looked like an animal skin and said, if Miss Jiu has the chance to return to the 10,000 Demon Realm, I will accompany Miss Jiu to find it. All right. Jiu Xia took the beast skin and looked at it. With a smile on her face, she said, if I get it, I will definitely give you half of it. Many thanks to Miss Jiu. Hu Qiong was also happy and hurriedly bowed. He. Almost at the same time, Hu Qiong and Jiu Xia laughed in their hearts. This was because they both knew that the inherited demon artifact of the Fox clan could no longer be used. Even if they found the entrance to the Legacy World, it was impossible for them to enter. Moreover, they both knew that in the Legacy World, there was no Fox clan's true bloodline. Xiaohua naturally didn't know the thoughts of the Fox clan. He was now close to the Empress Earth stronghold. Huang Tong, who imprisoned the Snow Wolf, had just returned. She stood beside Xiaohua and looked at the undulating mountain range in the distance. She whispered, fellow cultivator, I imprisoned the Snow Wolf in a secret place underground. If there is no special opportunity, no one will find it. Of course, I didn't set up any special restrictions in that secret place. In the future, someone will find it. And, fellow Daoist, you've done well. Xiaohua nodded. Although she's imprisoned, there's always a way out. When someone discovers the Snow Wolf, that'll be the moment she escapes. If it was I who did it earlier, why would I let her live? Huang Tong sneered. Daoist which also stood on the other side. He looked into the distance and asked, fellow cultivator, how confident are you in reviving Midnight? Why don't you let I do it? If fellow cultivator does it, it's naturally the best. Xiaohua said with a serious face. At this moment, rain had begun to fall from the millions of Meng mountains. The heavy dark clouds were like the bottom of the Milky Way, suddenly leaking out. The rain poured down like a waterfall, slowly covering the entire heaven and earth. Layers of water vapor rose from the mountain range, blocking Xiaohua's eyes and covering his heart. After a while, Xiaohua said, if it was before, I would do the same. However, since Ziming can't escape, and I's son is the new Shaman King, if I don't do it for my son, how can I face Ziming? Therefore, it's better for I to do it this time. Some things are natural, and some things are inevitable. Huang Tong sighed. If it was before, fellow cultivator would be modest. However, for the sake of your son, even if it's just a little bit of face, fellow cultivator has to fight for it. Xiaohua nodded. There's a saying in the human race, you don't know the kindness of your parents until you're a parent. Until now, I suddenly felt the helpless feeling of my master that day, the feeling of being disappointed in me for not becoming steel. The feeling of breaking your own gold core and feeding it to I. It's time to go back to the myriad Thunder Valley. Huang Tong naturally felt the misery in Xiao Hua's heart. She squeezed out a smile and said, "Fellow cultivator took away the immortal slaying platform in the myriad Thunder Valley. I wonder what's the situation in the Imperial Thunder sect now. Since I've returned to the Dawn Rain continent, all the karma will be settled." Xiao Hua was anxious to return home, but when he really set foot on the Dawn Rain continent, he was actually afraid of returning home. He looked in the direction of the Imperial Thunder sect and said, "Let's wait for I to settle them one by one." "Okay." Huang Tong nodded and said, "Previously, fellow cultivator left alone. Now, we'll accompany fellow cultivator back in a grand manner. Isn't it just like that sentence? Good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be punished with evil. It's not that there's no karma, it's just that the time hasn't come yet. He he. Taoist which also said, when the time comes, those who have a grudge will take revenge, those who have a grudge will take revenge, haha, that's right." Huang Tong laughed and followed Taoist witch into the space. "Yes, those who have a grudge will take revenge, those who have a grudge will take revenge." Xiao Hua spoke in a low voice as the yin lightning of the three corpses surged around him. He released his shaman body and urged his figure to charge towards Empress Earth's stronghold. His voice still lingered in the rain, and it resounded out like thunder. "Now's the time." Hutta's stronghold was still the same Hutta's stronghold. Hundreds of years of time couldn't leave any marks on this shaman stronghold. However, the surroundings of Hutta's stronghold were different from when Xiao Hua and the others came. The mountain range and between the foothills were full of millets. Although it was raining and the millet stalks were swaying with the wind, they were still very strong and didn't fall down. Some of the millet grains had been blown into the flowing water, but there was no need to worry. Wherever the millet grains fell, there would be new millet grains growing. Xiao Hua's virtue had truly supported the lives of millions of Meng Mountain's natives. In the back mountain of Hutta's stronghold, inside the bone palace that was built with bones and skeletons, the statue of Hutta Great God stood there like a mountain. However, this time, the statue was different from before. One side of the statue glowed with an extremely bright green halo. Within the halo, wisps of blood flickered. In particular, the bloody waves of the nether blood sea were reflected in the void from time to time as the wisps of blood flickered. On the other side of the statue, there was a withered tree that looked like an ancient tree. No light could be seen, and there were many green characters that looked like they were dead engraved on it. Around the statue of Hutta Great God, all the elders of the 12 shaman strongholds were kneeling down. Behind them, there were 99 elders of the upper stronghold and 360 elders of the lower stronghold. These soul cultivators, and shamans of different ages and appearances were all putting their foreheads on the ground with a pious look on their faces, while chanting something in a low voice. The strange rhythm lasted for a long time in the bone palace. Under the rhythm, the light of Hutta Great God would flicker from time to time, and occasionally, the statue of Hutta Great God would even let out a hoarse noise, while tiny whirlpools that looked like swimming fishes would appear on the roof of the bone palace. However, the statue of Hutta Great God that looked like an ancient tree didn't shine at all. The elder of Rushu's stronghold was an old man whose face had turned blue. His name was Jishan, and his forehead was also touching the ground with a thoughtful look in his eyes. However, at this moment, he slightly tilted his head and saw a young man standing not far away from him. The young man was tall and sturdy, and his skin was naturally covered in tiny water ripples. As the young man was chanting, the water ripples moved slightly, and wisps of watery light flowed out from the ripples. This young man was none other than Noa Lin, the elder of Gonggong's stronghold. Jishin remained silent for a while, then sent a message to Noa Lin with a low voice, "Noa Lin, I have something to ask you." Noa Lin paused briefly, then stopped chanting. She didn't respond, but looked around, then sent a message back to Jisheng. Jisheng, can't you tell me after the praying ceremony? Of course not. Jisheng responded, I want to ask you about the praying ceremony. Noa Lin was impatient, so she urged, just say it. Hee hee. Jisheng chuckled and asked, Noa Lin, let me ask you, how long does a praying ceremony usually take? Noa Lin frowned and responded, how am I supposed to know? This is the first time for me to take part in a praying ceremony. What about the records in your Gonggong Stronghold's Magus Codex? Asked Jisheng in a meaningful tone. I don't know. Noa Lin responded straightforwardly, I didn't read the Magus Codex. P.S. My friends who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, recommend it, collect it, or give it as a reward. Chapter 50-51. I've read it. Ji Shui responded, I especially read it before I came to Huda village. Why did you read the Magus Code? Noa Mo asked curiously, when the Magus King ordered us to come to Huda village, he didn't say anything about returning to the arms of Huda God. How do you know that he'll go to the netherworld? Ah, Noa Mo. Ji Shui sighed and said, Jianji and the young Ji man from Huda village went to Wuxia Mountain tens of years ago. About 14 years ago, that young Ji man lived in Magus King village alone, and never walked out of Wuxia Mountain in the past 10 years. Oh. Really? Noa Mo paused and said, if so, it's possible. What do you mean it's possible? The Magus King has already returned to the arms of Huda God. Ji Shui sneered and said, besides, I'm telling you, 100 years ago, the Magus King sent a Magus to Huda village and searched around 10,000 miles around Huda village, it's meaningless to talk about this. Noa Mo said impatiently, you're just giving advice after the fact. The Magus King told us to wait in Huda village, and he has already gone to the netherworld. You're right. The problem now is, why hasn't the new Magus King shown up yet? Only half of Huda God in Huda village has woken up, and half of the gods in the other 11 villages must have woken up as well. What should we do now? We've been praying for a whole day and night, but why hasn't the new Magus King shown up yet? Needless to say. Ji Shui said blandly, something must have happened when the new Magus King was born. Otherwise, it wouldn't take so long. According to the Magus Code of our Russia village, the Magus Code of our Russia village shows that a god-praying priest takes about a meal, and the longest one lasts 2 hours. Ah. What should we do? Noa Mo from Gonggong village was startled, and even forgot to send a spiritual power to Ji Shui. Ji Ju was stunned. He glared fiercely at Noa Bu, regretting that he should not have spoken to this straightforward elder Wu. However, it was fine. Not only Ji Meng and Nana, even Jianji and the other elders were confused. However, they didn't dare to stop the ritual without a reason. Noa Fu's scream happened at the right time. Everyone stopped the ritual. Jianji even coughed and asked, ahem. Noa Fu, what are you doing? What's the matter? Jianji, let me ask you, where's your Ji man? Noa Bu asked directly. Oh, Ziming is accompanying the Shaman King in the Shaman King village. Jianji didn't conceal anything and replied. Then. Noa Bu seemed to be organizing her words. She thought for a moment and asked, why hasn't the new Shaman King appeared? Is this related to Ziming? This. Jianji slightly shook his head, gave a bitter smile and said, I don't know either. I'm afraid that we can only wait for Ziming to come back and ask him. Jianji. Ji Ju asked, before I came here, I read the Magus book of our Russia village. Normally, a god's praying ritual lasts for half an hour. Today's god's praying ritual. Is it too long? Jianji nodded and said, I'm confused too. I think you all have the same feeling as me. If I'm not mistaken, something must have happened in the Shaman King village. Even though Jianji was straightforward, He didn't dare to say that something had happened to the new shaman king in the ancestral hall of Ho-Tu village. However, Jianji was different. He knew something about the new shaman king, and this was Ho-Tu village. Nevertheless, once Jianji said that, everyone in the bone-setting hall started whispering, just like a firecracker being set off by a spark. Everyone couldn't help but express their doubts. Jianji didn't stop them. Instead, he let them whisper. After a long while, the hall finally quieted down. Jianji. Han Zhu, the elder of Jerome village said, "What the hell is going on?" Now that the shaman king asked us to gather in Ho-Tu village, he must have made some arrangement. Hurry, tell us. Without any hesitation, Jianji said, "I don't know what arrangement the shaman king has made. But I can tell you about his arrangement." All right. All the elder magi urged, "Hurry up and tell us. Perhaps we could find the new shaman king together." Closely after that, Jianji told them about the arrangement of the shaman king. Finally, he said, the shaman king knew that the new shaman king would be born in Ho-Tu village. Therefore, he asked you to come here. He even asked Ziming to go to shaman king village. However, I don't know why the new shaman king hasn't appeared yet. Let's go. Feng Ji said without hesitation, "It's meaningless for us to stay in Ho-Tu village. Let's go to shaman king village as soon as possible." But Jianji said with a bitter smile, "Without the order of the shaman king, we couldn't enter Shaman God Ridge. The shaman king has returned to the netherworld. There's no old shaman king's order in this world. If we follow this order, we couldn't find the trace of the new shaman king." Jianji added, "Additionally, if the new shaman king couldn't be born, we couldn't wait for the new shaman king's order. Therefore, we couldn't enter Shaman God Ridge anymore. Everything that happened in Shaman King village would become a mystery. Yes, we have to go to Shaman King village even if we violate the order of the ancestor." Jian Feng, the shaman of Shuhai village, said without hesitation, "Otherwise, the new shaman king couldn't appear. But we broke into Shaman King village without the order of the shaman king." Jianji said after being hesitant, "It's a big crime. If we die, I'm afraid that we couldn't even return to the embrace of the hooded god." In a split second, all the others became silent. Everyone. Seeing the dead silence in the hall, Jianji thought for a while and said, "Since the shaman king asked you to gather in Huda village, I should take responsibility for this matter. You wait here, I'll go to Shaman God Ridge now. How can that be?" Ruo Jianji immediately shouted before Jianji could finish his words, "If you want to go, I'll go with you. You're the son of the Huda god, but am I not the son of the Gongan god? If you can't return to the embrace of the Huda god, I'll accompany you." I'll go too. Jianji of Russia village said with a smile, "The great god Rushu is the most benevolent. If the Huda god doesn't accept us, we'll go find the great god Rushu." Humph. The other shaman elders snorted and shouted, "We're all the sons of the 12 great gods. Why can't we go?" Jianji felt warm in his heart when he heard the 11 elders of sorcerers' words. Although there were many conflicts and even wars between the villages, when it came to the most critical moment, everyone remembered that they were the descendants of the 12 great sorcerer and had the bloodline of the sorcerer in their bodies. With such unity, what difficulties could they not overcome? "We'll go with you to Shaman King village." Hundreds of shaman elders from other villages said in unison, "I'm sure the hooded god won't refuse to let us go, right?" Ha! Jianji laughed and said, "In that case, we'll all go. However, we don't all have to go to Shaman God Ridge. I'll send a message to Ziming and find out the situation first. What do you think?" "Okay." The shaman elders nodded and said, "Let's do that." Since the shaman elders had made up their minds, they didn't waste any time. They all flew out of the bone palace and prepared to leave in the heavy rain. At this moment, a chilly wind suddenly blew over from a distance away, covering the entire Huda village within a moment. Jianji's bone phoenix was about to spread its wings, but at this moment, it trembled and retracted its wings. Its entire skeleton was shaking while making a creaking noise, then it shrunk into a ball. Not to mention the bone phoenix, even the mounts of the other shaman elders had all huddled up and retracted their heads into their wings, daring not to stick their heads out. Who? Jianji and the other shaman elders were all shocked. They couldn't believe it, and Jianji couldn't help but shout. Swoosh! As Jianji's probing sound landed, an overwhelming aura surged over. Wherever this aura passed, the dark clouds in the sky rolled, and the rain between the heavens and the earth was swept away. It was as if it was a sunny day, and the mountains and plains were filled with a kind of freshness. When this sense of power descended and covered all the shaman elders, the shaman elder of Ganggang village couldn't help but shout out in shock, This is the will of the supreme shaman. What's going on? Jianji was also greatly shocked. He held back the fear that involuntarily rose in his heart and rushed into the sky, yelling, The will of the supreme Magus is twice as strong as that of the Magus king. How is this possible? Wu! Before Jianji could fly a few dozen feet further, from the source of the aura, countless huge green seal script characters shot up into the sky. When the green seal script characters disappeared, a series of voices of gods and ghosts could be heard. The gloomy clouds that had covered millions of Meng mountains a moment ago were wiped away like a pair of giant hands, revealing the blue sky. Right in the middle of the sky, a crimson-red sun was revealed, shining its warm sunlight onto the damp and gloomy millions of Meng mountains. The gloomy atmosphere of the shaman king's death was instantly swept away. Amidst the sunlight, a supreme shaman, who was thousands of feet tall, flew over while stepping on thunderbolts. Although the appearance of this supreme shaman couldn't be seen clearly, the pure body of the supreme shaman, and the green seal characters that looked like flood dragons around him, and the soul strands all revealed the identity of this supreme shaman. Shaman King. Not only Jianji, even the hundreds of shaman elders had the same thought in their minds, this is the new Shaman King. Jianji and the other shamans didn't dare to hesitate. Hastily, they kneeled down in midair and shouted, We greet the Shaman King. After saying that, they crossed their arms in front of their chests and knelt down. However, out of their expectation, an irresistible force came out like a tidal wave and blocked them. At the same time, a thunderous voice was heard, I'm not your new Shaman King. Your new Shaman King hasn't been born yet. P.S. For all my fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, or tip it. Thank you for your tip, little Jianjian. Chapter 50-52. Along with the voice, the god of sorcerers' human form landed in front of them. Xiao. Xiao Hua, Daoist Xiao. The green light around the god of sorcerer retracted, revealing Xiao Hua's appearance. Although it had been a few hundred years, Jianji still recognized Xiao Hua at first glance. He was shocked, and after a moment of daze, he exclaimed. Yes, it's really me. Xiao Hua smiled and retracted his god of sorcerers avatar, which gradually returned to its original size. However, he didn't retract his avatar. You. Shibai village's shaman Zhumin naturally also recognized Xiao Hua. However, he didn't associate the shaman god in front of him with the little cultivator from before. Only when Xiao Hua personally admitted it did he belatedly call out, You're really Xiao Hua. How is this possible? Nothing is impossible. Xiao Hua looked at the other elders and asked, What are you waiting for? Who is Daoist Xiao? Zhu Min recognized Xiao Hua, but the other elders didn't. Even though some of them had seen Xiao Hua in the Bone Palace before and wanted to ask, facing Xiao Hua's god of sorcerers aura, which was even stronger than that of a shaman king, they couldn't even breathe, so how could they ask? Daoist Xiao. Jianji didn't dare to neglect and quickly answered, Millions of shaman kings of Meng Mountain have returned to the embrace of great goddess Hudu, but a new shaman king hasn't been born yet. We want to go to Shaman Ridge to find out. You don't have to go. Xiao Hua understood and waved his hand. I just came out from Shaman Ridge, I know what happened. Taoist Xiao, is this true? Jianji asked in disbelief. Xiao Hua nodded. If not, why would Ziming go to Shaman Ridge? Ah. Oh. Oh, every elders had different reactions, and their thoughts were also different. However, Xiao Hua didn't explain too much. He looked around at the elders and said indifferently, I left early, so I don't know the details. But you don't have to worry, everything is under the arrangement of the Shaman King. Earlier, these Magus elders were still a bit suspicious of Xiao Hua, who was a stranger to them, but when they heard Xiao Hua call out the Magus King's name, all their doubts disappeared. Except for the Magus elders of the 12 Magus villages, even the Magus elders of the 99 Magus villages couldn't possibly know the Magus King's name. Junren Xiao, what's going on? Nuo of Gonggang village asked cautiously. Xiao Hua looked around and said with a smile, are we going to talk here? Do you want to listen to all of them? Jian Ji came to his senses and hurriedly bowed, spiritual master, this way please. Although it was still Xiao Hua, Jianji no longer dared to treat Xiao Hua as a little cultivator. His face was full of respect. Wait. After taking a few steps forward, Xiao Hua suddenly turned his head around and looked at the group of shaman elders in the upper and lower strongholds, saying, millions of shaman kings of Meng Mountains will return to the 9 underworlds, and this is the day of sacrifice for the soul cultivators. How dare you demons come here and disturb us? How audacious! Along with this voice, 20 or so in thunder of 3 corpses transformed into sharp swords and shot towards the 20 or so shaman elders at lightning speed. Aoo. Under the attack of the in thunder of 3 corpses, the 20 or so shaman elders all fell to the ground while howling. Clouds of dim devil energy surged out, and the demons in the devil energy were killed by the in thunder of 3 corpses before they could even show themselves. Damn it! Seeing this, Jian Ji couldn't help but become furious. He shouted, there are actually demons in the midst of the god-praying ceremony. Where is the face of our Huda village? Men, elders of the 12 shaman villages, quickly investigate the origins of these shaman elders and rush to these shaman villages. If you find anything inappropriate, immediately kill them. Sigh, demons. They are really everywhere. Xiao Hua sighed slightly. Although he had a clone that was also a demon lord, he was still a demon lord. The other shaman elders should stay here as well. Don't leave first. Xiao Hua thought for a while and said, wait until I finish explaining the reason for this matter, then you all can make a decision. Yes, Taoist. The divine abilities displayed by Xiao Hua were indeed powerful, and these divine abilities were all soul cultivation divine abilities. The group of Elder Wu was convinced, and they all nodded their heads carefully as they spoke. Everyone surrounded Xiao Hua and entered the Bone Palace. Xiao Hua stood in front of the hooded great god statue and looked around. He sighed and said, the Bone Palace is still the same Bone Palace, the hooded great god is still the same, but the people standing here have changed a lot. Hearing this, Jian Ji's face changed slightly. He said anxiously, Taoist, you mean, hee, it's fine. You 12 shaman elders are all real shaman elders. Don't worry about this. Xiao Hua said with a smile, if there was anything inappropriate I would have already made a move. Phew. Jian Ji let out a long breath and said with a smile, that's good. If they were also invaded by the demons, then it would be troublesome. We are all descendants of the 12 great gods, how can the demons occupy us? Nuabu said with disdain. You are wrong. Xiao Hua said with a smile, there are also Taoist cultivators who are several times more powerful than you and have also practiced the soul cultivation technique. There are Taoist cultivators who are more powerful than me. Nuabu was stunned, and they have also practiced the soul cultivation technique. How is that possible? Xiao Hua looked at Nuabu and asked, do you know what is on the other side of $1 Million Meng Mountain? Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance. Nuabu answered without hesitation, a very powerful Daoist alliance. Why, are you talking about the Daoist experts of Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance? Xiaohua nodded and said, you are right and wrong. Nuabu asked curiously, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by right and wrong? Because that expert is on the other side of $1 Million Mang Mountain. However, the Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance you mentioned is only one of the 72 immortal alliances of the Heaven Alliance, and it is the weakest one. Xiaohua said with a smile, in addition, I also want to tell you that other than the Heaven Alliance, there is also a Dao Alliance. This Dao Alliance has 81 immortal alliances, and each of them is more powerful than the Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance. Hiss. Jianji came to a realization, took a deep breath and said, Daoist Xiao, so you have been going to Meng Mountain all these years? Yes. Xiaohua nodded and answered, don't think that soul cultivation is very unique. No matter how unique it is still a cultivation method. Once there is a flaw, it will still be taken advantage of by the devil race. A devil general can't take over your body, but what about a devil commander? If you are really useful, then what about a devil emperor? Cough cough. Nuabu said embarrassedly, if a devil emperor comes, why would he need to take over my body? He can just kill me directly. Jianji sighed and said, that's right. Our soul cultivation is somewhat similar to your Daoist sect. Our shaman strongholds are not very lucky. Many soul cultivation techniques had already been lost. Now, the Shaman King has entered the Netherworld, and the new Shaman King is missing. Just thinking about it makes me worried. The new Shaman King is not missing. Xiaohua said indifferently, the new Shaman King is just not born in $1 Million Mang Mountain. What? Not born in $1 Million Mang Mountain? Then where is the new Shaman King? Jianji cried out in shock. Of course it's in Meng Mountain. Xiaohua said smilingly, the Yi-Lin continent ruled by the Heaven Alliance and the Dao Alliance. How is that possible? Not only Jianji, all the other shaman elders felt it was inconceivable. This is the arrangement of the Shaman King. Xiaohua explained without hiding anything, because he thinks the new Shaman King is more suitable to be born there. Jianji looked at all the shaman elders, then asked Xiaohua, we know the Shaman King must have his reasons for making such an arrangement. But the problem is, there are innate restrictive spells in the depths of $1 Million Mang Mountain. If we can't go there with our cultivation bases, when will the new Shaman King be able to return to $1 Million Mang Mountain? Without the Shaman King, can't you all survive in $1 Million Mang Mountain? Xiaohua asked, can't you all reorganize your soul cultivation and prepare to welcome the new Shaman King? Reverend. Jianji was puzzled and answered, how can we reorganize our soul cultivation? Without the Shaman King, where should we go? Who can give us guidance? At this point, Jianji's eyes lit up, and he quickly said, Reverend, I'm not. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, the Shaman King has passed away. Originally, he wanted me to be the next Shaman King, but I'm going to ascend soon, and I don't have time to help you. Ascend? All the shaman elders looked at each other, and finally had an accurate estimation of Xiaohua's strength. But, I've been entrusted by the 12 great gods to bring you these. Xiaohua took out a qiankuan bag, and with a wave of his hand, many bones and other items flew out, landing in front of Jianji and the other shaman elders. This is. Jianji was puzzled, so he casually took one of them. When he scanned it with his soul sense, he was stunned. Then, he hurriedly released his soul sense and scanned the other bones. Finally, he looked up at Xiaohua excitedly and said, Reverend, these are the divine abilities bestowed to us by the great god Hutu. Where did you get them? That's right, these are the divine abilities of our great god. All the other shaman elders shouted with wild joy, and most of them have been lost. As these shaman elders shouted, they had already grasped the bones in front of them. Although they hadn't put them into their soul bags yet, they were sure that even if the Shaman King was standing in front of them, they wouldn't let go of these bones so easily. Xiao Hua said slowly, "It doesn't matter where I got them. What matters is, these divine abilities of the great gods originally belonged to you shaman elders. What I'm doing is just following the order of the 12 great gods, to return these divine abilities to you shaman elders. Perhaps I didn't understand the meaning of the 12 great gods before, but today, seeing that the new Shaman King hasn't been born yet, and the old Shaman Kings have already returned to the great gods' embrace, how could I not know what the great gods are thinking?" "That's right." Jianji suddenly realized what Xiao Hua was talking about, and quickly shouted, "The 12 great gods have already predicted the changes in Meng Mountains, and were afraid that we would fall apart. Therefore, they specially bestowed the divine abilities of the 12 shaman villages, allowing us to restore the glory of soul cultivators, and welcome the arrival of the new Shaman King. P.S. For all the fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, and give it a tip." Chapter 50-53. After saying that, Jianji immediately knelt down in front of the statue of hooded great god, kowtowed and said, "Boy understands hooded great god's will. Boy will now bestow the divine ability to the descendants of great god to cultivate. When the new Shaman King returns, he will lead us back to glory." Seeing this, Xiao Hua also knelt down and said, "Junior Xiao Hua, reporting to hooded great god." Junior was lucky enough to escape from the Buddhist formation. "Now, I want to report to hooded great god that the new Shaman King Ming has entered the cycle of reincarnation. I hope great god can grant him a safe reincarnation and be born in Yilan continent. When he returns to Mount Meng in the future, he will lead millions of soul cultivators back to glory. Shaman King Ming." Jianji and others were even more delighted when they heard this. They all knelt down in front of hooded great god, kowtowing and praying. It was also strange. As they prayed, although the statue on one side of hooded great god didn't emit a dark green luster, strands of thread-like life force slowly filled it. The exuberant life force began to spread in the shrine of the god of the netherworld. Ha ha ha. Jianji and others laughed, their previous worries were swept away. Xiao Hua stood up with everyone and said, "There is a saying in Xiaoyu continent that a jade can't be made into a treasure if it's not cut, and a man can't be made into a talent if he's not sharpened." Although there were many twists and turns in the birth of Shaman King Ming, it was precisely this sharpening that allowed him to become a far-sighted leader. "Yes, yes." The group of elders nodded in agreement again. But after agreeing, Nuabu asked, "Reverend, I haven't seen the Shaman King recently, but I really don't understand. Why must the new Shaman King be born in Yilan continent? Can't Xiaoyu continent do the same?" Xiao Hua didn't know if he should tell them about the Buddhist formation, but if he didn't, he couldn't explain why Zi Ming didn't return from Shaman King's stronghold. So, he thought for a while and asked Nuabu, "Have you seen the Shaman King?" "Of course." Nuabu felt strange. She looked at the other elders and said, "I've seen all of them. What does the Shaman King look like?" Although Xiao Hua didn't know what the Shaman King's soul looked like, he still asked. "What do you mean, Reverend?" Jianji was confused and asked, "Could it be that the Magus Kings you met were different from ordinary human beings?" "That's right." Xiao Hua nodded. With a flick of his finger, the image of the Shaman King with a human face and a dragon tail appeared. Nameless God. Jianji and the other elder Wu cried out involuntarily, "Why does the Shaman King look like the 13th nameless great god? This is the true face of the Shaman King." Xiao Hua indifferently said, "What you all saw was merely his soul body. Or perhaps it's called a soul shadow." When he spoke up to hear, Xiao Hua paused for a moment before continuing. "Of course, all of you can also say that what all of you saw was the Shaman King's true body, and what I saw was merely the Shaman King's shaman body. Then where did Taoist Xiao meet the Shaman King?" Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold had already calculated, and now he asked, could it be that it's not the Witch King stronghold of the Witch God Ridge? That's right, it's not the Shaman King village of the Shaman God Ridge. Xiaohua nodded and said, it's in a sealed space. Suppressed space. How is that possible? Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold cried out in shock again, you're saying that the Shaman Kings of Armeng Mountain were actually suppressed? It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Xiaohua knew that the Elder Wu might not be able to accept it, so he indifferently said, that's the truth, I saw it with my own eyes. Then Ziming. Jianji realized that something was wrong and hastily asked. Ziming is also in that sealed space. Before the new Shaman King returns, I'm afraid she won't be able to escape. Xiaohua nodded and said. Then how did Daoist Xiao escape? Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold asked. Xiaohua took a deep look at Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold and answered, because the sealed space is suppressing someone related to the replacement of the old Shaman King, and I'm not. Daoist Xiao isn't. Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold was startled. I'm talking about someone related to the replacement of the old Shaman King. Xiaohua felt helpless, so he explained word by word, I have nothing to do with the replacement of the old Shaman King. I see. Xiaohua's denial actually meant another kind of acknowledgement, and all the Elder Wu suddenly understood. Daoist. Jianji of the Gonggang stronghold begged, can you tell us a little bit about the sealed space? We really didn't expect that the Shaman King had been sealed and suppressed all this time. Xiaohua nodded. On the way here, he had already thought it through clearly. Other than concealing the fact that the sealing array was a Buddhist array, he had also explained the majority of the matters regarding the sealing array, as well as the reason why the Shaman King had chosen to let Shaman Wang Ming descend to the Yilan continent. After Xiaohua finished speaking, the entire hooded great gods worshipping temple fell into complete silence. No one was willing to speak. The Elder Wu of the 12 shaman strongholds had always thought highly of themselves. They felt that they were tens of thousands of times better than the Dao cultivators and sword cultivators of the Dawn Rain continent. But only now did they understand the sadness behind the glory. The Shaman King, whom they regarded as a god, their leader, was actually sealed by a formation since he was born. For the sake of the inheritance of soul cultivators, the generations of Shaman Kings had always endured humiliation to survive, and had never leaked any information about this. When these Shaman Kings were living freely in the millions of Meng Mountains, the Shaman Kings had to face the endless darkness. Shaman King. Jianji of the Gonggang stronghold prostrated himself on the ground and cried out with his head buried in the ground, I was wrong. I shouldn't have forced you. Now, I finally understand your difficulties. It's all my fault. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. Jianji of the Gonggang stronghold didn't tell them what his mistake was, but judging from his remorseful expression, he had a deep understanding of his mistake. With Gonggang stronghold in such a state, how could the other Elder Wu still remain standing? They all kneeled down in shame, including Jianji. Apart from kowtowing, the rest was the remorse in their hearts. But too bad, the tears would always come later. They could only wash away the dust on their faces, but could never wash away the remorse in their hearts. After a full hour, Xiaohua finally opened his mouth and said, everyone, please rise. The past is the past, and the present is happening now. Only the future is something we can change. Put away the remorse in your hearts, let the tears flow into your mouths, let yourself taste this bitterness, and turn this bitterness into a preparation for the Shaman King. The Shaman King said it well, bright, the sun and the moon are above, the light of the world is shining brightly. Wherever the bright returns, the millions of Meng mountains will shine brightly. You all need to do your job well, lead your mega stronghold and your subordinates well, and cultivate well with the gift of the 12 gods. In the future, the millions of Meng mountains will no longer be the same as today, and the soul cultivators will bring glory to the entire 4 continents. Thank you for your advice, Shaman Father. At this moment, all the elders had risen to their feet, and Jianji took the opportunity to bow and say, if not for Shaman Father's message, we would still be in the dark. Shaman Father. Xiao Hua was taken aback, then waved his hand and said, that's the honorific title of the Shaman King, and I don't deserve it. I think it's better to call you Reverend Xiao. Actually. Jianji looked around and said in a low voice, Reverend, we soul cultivators don't have any ascension. If Reverend is still worried, you can give up your cultivation base of Tao League and just be the Shaman Father of soul cultivators. Huh? Xiao Hua was shocked. He stared at Jianji and said in disbelief, you, all the soul cultivators, can't ascend? Jianji shrugged and answered with a helpless and bitter expression, of course, if you don't believe me, Reverend, you can ask the other elders. I've never heard of any shaman ascending from millions of Meng mountains, and there's no record of this in the shaman book of Huda's stronghold. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed in a low voice, I should have asked the Shaman King about this. Then, Xiao Hua looked at the other elders. Sure enough, all the other elders shook their heads and said there was no record of this. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua was surprised, but he quickly asked Taoist Wu in his mind, is there any record of this in the inheritance of soul cultivators in the 3 continents? What do you think? Taoist Wu was also surprised, and answered, fellow Taoist, there's no record of ascension in the inheritance of soul cultivators, but there's a saying that soul cultivators will return to the embrace of the gods. Returning to the hooded great god means entering the netherworld, but what about returning to the other gods? It doesn't necessarily mean that they will die. Besides, I also have the feeling of ascension, just like all of you. But to be specific, I's situation is similar to that of old man Gu Qiong. I only have the feeling, but I can't find the door of ascension, so I don't know where to go. I understand. Xiao Hua frowned and answered, there are 3 possibilities. First, the ascension of soul cultivators is different from that of Taoists. They don't necessarily leave the Dawn Rain continent with their physical bodies. Second, the cultivation base of the millions of shamans in Meng Mountains is too weak. Because of the loss of their inheritance, none of them can ascend, so there's no record of this. Third, the existence of the Buddhist formation on Mount Meru has blocked the ascension passage of soul cultivators, so soul cultivators can't ascend. But Taoist Wu was a little worried, fellow Taoist, you're about to ascend. What should I do? That's troublesome. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, it'll be good if you can ascend. But if you can't, do you have to stay on the Dawn Rain continent? Or do you have to enter the space and follow I to the immortal world? I have 2 plans. Taoist Wu made a decision, it'll be best if I can ascend. If I can't, I'll either stay on the Wuming Mountains or stay with the Fortune Gate's disciples. If that's the case, why don't you be my father? Xiao Hua was moved and said, my descendants will also be your descendants. Good. Taoist Wu nodded in agreement. Xiao Hua reached an agreement with Taoist Wu and said to Jianji, to tell you the truth, the Shaman King had the intention of making I the Shaman King when he passed away. He also misunderstood that I was the new Shaman King. But he was wrong, and I didn't agree to be the Shaman King. There's one more thing. When I returned from the other side of the Wuming Mountains, I met a shaman who was even more powerful than I. This shaman was called Taoist Wu. Taoist Wu followed I to the Wuming Mountains, but he couldn't show himself in the space seal. So, I didn't dare to reveal his whereabouts. When he left the space seal, he said that he was going to find the origin of the 12 great gods, so he left first. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, tip it, and... Chapter 50-54. Having said that, Xiao Hua suddenly raised his head and looked at a spot outside the Bone Palace. He smiled and said, all right, he is here. Just wait and see. I think he is more suitable to be the witch father than I. Everyone, follow me to welcome Taoist witch. What? There is a witch who is more powerful than Taoist. Jianji was stunned. When he heard Xiao Hua say that the witch had arrived, he was even more surprised. Ruobu, Ji Xiu, and the other grand magi could not follow Xiao Hua's train of thought. They stood there in a daze. Let's go. Xiao Hua took a few steps forward, then turned his head and said unhappily, this Taoist witch is an expert from Woman Mountain Range. It seems like he has the same origin as all the soul cultivators in Meng Mountains. If he is willing to help, you will no longer have to worry about being a witch king. Jianji smiled wryly and said, Taoist, we know your background and trust you, but the others. He, it doesn't matter. Just follow me to meet this fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua smiled and said, he might not agree to help anyway. All right. Jianji and the others nodded helplessly and followed Xiao Hua out of the Bone Palace. In the entire Meng Mountains, aside from the clear sky within 10,000 miles of Huda's stronghold, everywhere else was still covered by dark clouds, and no sunlight could be seen. The dark clouds that covered the entire sky were like huge soul beasts, slowly devouring the sunlight and the clear sky. Roar! Just as Xiao Hua brought all the grand magi and stood still outside the palace, they heard a roar that sounded like the roar of a dragon coming from the depths of Meng Mountains. In just a brief moment, the roar had reached the vicinity of Huda's stronghold. Jianji and the others quickly looked over and saw a towering witch divinity stepping on a green cloud, whistling toward them. Perhaps Taoist witch's appearance was not as shocking as Xiao Hua's, but as he was born from the witch divinity, he did not need to use any divine ability. Just by standing in midair, he seemed to have gathered the aura of all the soul cultivators in Meng Mountains into his body. Furthermore, when Taoist witch revealed himself, all the elders of Meng Mountains had their eyes fixed on him. They couldn't see his face clearly under the dark green lightning threads, and the strange-looking crown on his head. Without any hesitation, they all knelt down and cried out, millions of people of Meng Mountains greet the witch sovereign. Xiao Hua frowned, he was very puzzled, because he had never heard of the title of Shaman Emperor. Taoist priest Wu's body didn't shrink much when he landed on the ground. He waved his hand and helped all the Taoist elders up. He said with a thunderous voice, get up. There's no such thing as a shaman emperor in my soul cultivation legacy. It's all because some ordinary people have confused the term soul cultivator with the term of the secular world. Just call me Taoist witch. Junior doesn't dare. When Jianji and the others saw that Taoist witch's aura was even more powerful than Xiao Hua's, they didn't dare to call him Taoist witch. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, I wonder if fellow Taoist can find the traces of the 12 great gods. Sure, fellow Taoist knows. Taoist priest Wu answered casually, I just started to search. I only found out that my Woman Mountain Range is the same as the Million Meng Mountain Range. Also, it seems like the Million Meng Mountain Range is more prosperous in soul cultivation. I was delighted, but I encountered the change of my soul cultivators witch luck. That's why I hurried back. From what I know, the Shaman King that I have never met must have passed away and returned to the embrace of Huda Great God. Sigh, what a pity. If it wasn't for that sealed space, I could still meet the Shaman King here. If Taoist priest Wu said that he had met the Shaman King, or even passed down the Shaman King's message, Jianji and the others might not know. They would definitely be suspicious. On the contrary, Taoist priest Wu said that he had never met the Shaman King and said that he regretted it, which made Jianji and the others even less suspicious. At this point, Taoist priest Wu asked even though he already knew the answer, oh, by the way, where's the new Shaman King? Has he been sent to the Yilan continent like fellow Taoist said? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, I don't know about that. After all, these things were done by the Shaman King after we left. However, fellow Taoist, the old Shaman King has passed away, and the new Shaman King has yet to appear. There's no Shaman King in Million Meng Mountains, and the shaman elders are not confident. Just now, they wanted to ask I to be the shaman father. You know, although I know soul cultivation, I am still a Taoist cultivator, and I can't be the shaman father. I just thought of fellow Taoist, and here you are. What? Fellow Taoist, you want I to be the shaman father of the new shaman king in Million Meng Mountains? Taoist priest Wu pointed at his nose and said in surprise, don't forget that I am the shaman father of Wumeng Mountain Range. Yes. Xiao Hua smiled, didn't you say it just now? Wumeng Mountain Range and Million Meng Mountains share the same origin, and there's no need to distinguish between them. Isn't it the same for you to be the shaman father of Wumeng Mountain Range and Million Meng Mountains? Fellow Taoist, you are wrong. Taoist priest Wu shook his head and said, I haven't seen the new shaman king, and I don't have any blood ties with the new shaman king. How can I be the shaman father of the new shaman king? We humans have the title of godfather. I wonder if soul cultivators can use it as a reference. Xiao Hua still tried to persuade him. Taoist priest Wu shook his head again, I came to the lost land for 2 reasons. First, I want to find the difference between Million Meng Mountains and Wumeng Mountain Range, and find the origin of the 12 great gods. Second, I want to help fellow Taoist Xiao break the immortal formation. There are billions of living beings in the 3 continents, so let's not talk about the shaman father of Million Meng Mountains. Xiao Hua and Taoist priest Wu were answering their own questions, and they didn't discuss it with Jianji and the others, but Jianji and the others understood. Everyone was like that. If Taoist priest Wu wanted to be the shaman elder, Jianji and the others might not agree, even if Taoist priest Wu had an extraordinary background and was the legendary shaman emperor of Million Meng Mountains. However, Taoist priest Wu didn't agree, and Jianji and the others were a little moved. They looked at each other and talked to each other through telepathy. Jianji stepped forward and said, Senior, please listen to me. Taoist priest Wu smiled, you don't have to say much. I was already exhausted in Wumeng Mountain Range. Wouldn't it be even more tiring to go to Million Meng Mountains? I still want to comprehend the will of the great god and return to the great god's embrace as soon as possible. That's a good idea, fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua said meaningfully, however, you're going to be disappointed. The shaman elders have just told me that Million Meng Mountains don't have a passage similar to our Tao sects. It can't be. Taoist priest Wu looked worried, and he said in disbelief, Million Meng Mountains is the birthplace of soul cultivators. How can it be? Senior. Jianji hurriedly said, as far as I know, Million Meng Mountains don't have such records. But whether it exists or not, it depends on the shaman king. The problem is. Taoist priest Wu shook his head, the shaman kings of Million Meng Mountains have returned to the great god Huda's embrace, but the new shaman king hasn't returned yet. So. Jianji smiled and said, Senior can wait for the new shaman king to be born in Million Meng Mountains. Well. Taoist priest Wu hesitated, and he looked at Wumeng Mountain Range. Xiao Hua took the opportunity and said, Fellow Taoist, you've already arranged everything in Wumeng Mountain Range. Moreover, there's a sealed space between Wumeng Mountain Range and Million Meng Mountains. It's not realistic for you to return to Wumeng Mountain Range. Why don't you stay in Million Meng Mountains for now? We'll talk about it later. Of course, Taoist priest Wu wouldn't agree immediately. He waved his hand and said, I'll help you break the immortal formation first. That's the only way. Xiao Hua saw that he couldn't persuade Taoist priest Wu, so he turned to Jianji and the others and said, I can't do anything if this fellow Taoist doesn't agree. However, think about it, isn't he more suitable than I? Moreover, he's more realistic. Yes. Jianji hurriedly nodded, Senior, please think about this. We, the shamans of the 12 shaman villages, also need to discuss this. After all, it's against the ancestral rules to ask a shaman who has no relationship with the new shaman king to be the shaman father. Reverend, what's the immortal formation that senior shaman emperor mentioned? Jianji of the Russia village asked in a low voice. Well. Xiao Hua hesitated. After all, even the shaman kings didn't know about the immortal formation, how could these shamans know? But in the end, Xiao Hua still had the idea of working together, and told all the grand magi about the immortal formation. In the end, he said, I've already asked the Grand Magus, but he doesn't know much about it. I think there is no record of it in the millions of Meng mountains. Of course, if you have any clues about it, feel free to tell I. After all, there are hundreds of millions of lives in the 3 continents waiting to be saved. The shamans discussed in low voices, but no one spoke. Xiao Hua didn't find it strange. But just as he was about to speak, Jianji of the Russia village said with embarrassment, Reverend, Senior Shaman Emperor, this junior usually likes to read shaman books, bones, and other things. What Senior said, this junior seems to have some impression. However, it's been too long, and this junior can't remember clearly what it is. When this junior returns to the Russia village, if I find anything, I'll definitely inform Senior. Hehe, thank you for your trouble. Xiao Hua smiled and replied. However, he also knew how old the shaman of the Russia village was. He couldn't even remember what the shaman was, so he didn't dare to place too much hope on him. Since the shaman of the Russia village had spoken, the other shamans also expressed that they would go back and look carefully. Fellow Daoist. Daoist priest Wu looked around and asked, Where's Zai? Zai. Hearing this, Jianji's heart skipped a beat, as if he had an inexplicable premonition. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I just arrived at the Huda village, and I haven't mentioned this to Jianji yet. Hehe, fellow Daoist, you must do what you promised Ziming. Daoist priest Wu said. Xiao Hua nodded, took out a soul tool from his bosom, and handed it to Jianji, Shaman, this is the nether passage mirror that I damaged in the Huda palace in the Huda village. I have already repaired it, and now it's returned to you in perfect condition, which can be considered as fulfilling one of I's wishes. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-55. Hehe. Seeing Mo Lianxi's appearance, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of his youth before he entered the nascent soul stage. His impression of Mo Lianxi was very good. He raised his hand and said with a smile, Sect Master Mo, please. Mo Lianxi nodded. Her figure was like lightning as she flew towards the end of the rainbow bridge. Xiao Hua also urged his figure to follow behind. As they flew closer, Xiao Hua could clearly see that on the other side of the rainbow bridge was a huge palace. Not only did it cover the entire mountain, even the 7 mountain ridges were under it. Moreover, this palace was in the shape of a flower. The flower had 7 petals, each corresponding to the 7 mountain ridges. Even the color of the petals corresponded to the mountain ridges. Where Xiao Hua's gaze landed, the 7-colored palace had a kind of feeling as if it was about to fly away, like a flower swaying in the wind. As Mo Lianxi landed, in the center of the flower, in front of a huge palace, there were several women in colorful clothes standing gracefully. When these female disciples saw Xiao Hua, they immediately bowed and saluted. They called out, Junior greets Taoist Master Xiao, sweat. Seeing the peerless beauty of these female disciples, Xiao Hua's heart slightly twitched. He hurriedly waved his hand and helped the girls up. He smiled and said, all of you, rise. Ha! Mo Lianxi laughed loudly and said, Taoist Xiao is indeed a person with a temperament. This little one also hates those complicated formalities. It's really boring. It's better to have a few flower-like girls to accompany you and admire the flowers under the moon. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, Sect Master Mo's words are a bit inappropriate, right? Complicated formalities and admiring the flowers under the moon have nothing to do with it. Hehe, that's what I meant. Mo Lianxi didn't care about the meaning of Xiao Hua's words. She pointed at the two female disciples and said, "You too, serve Taoist Xiao well. Otherwise, I'll hold you responsible." "Yes." The two women were beautiful, fat and thin. They answered and immediately walked over. They held Xiaohua's arms on both sides. Their softness and warmth immediately stuck to him. The admiration in their eyes didn't seem to be fake. They respectfully said, "Spiritual master, please." Not only did the two female disciples have delicate and pretty faces, their temperaments were even more refined, and there was no foxy charm in their eyes. However, Xiaohua had not been close to women for tens of thousands of years. Although his Tao heart was firm, he did not cultivate the virgin cultivation technique. As soon as he came into contact with these fleshy bodies, he immediately felt his heart become somewhat noisy, as if 10,000 small gongs were being struck. Damn it! Xiaohua hurriedly activated his heart technique and cursed inwardly. He knew that he was injured, and it was the Devil Emperor who injured him. His willpower was not enough. Since he knew that he couldn't resist, Xiaohua simply didn't pretend to be an expert. He raised his hand and waved it. "Sect leader Mo, quickly let your two female disciples leave. I have been severely injured from the battle with the two demon emperors, and I have been suppressing my injuries all this time. Now that I can't resist this kind of temptation, if I do anything inappropriate, I'm afraid it won't be good for either of us." Mo Lianxi's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He naturally knew what happened at the Misty School. He had also hypothesized that Xiaohua would decline with a few excuses, and even assumed that Xiaohua would not decline. However, he didn't expect that Xiaohua, who was in the Tao actualization realm, would actually so frankly admit that he couldn't resist the temptation of women. Mo Lianxi smiled, "Spiritual Master Xiao, don't think too much. The female disciples of the fragrance cult are all top-quality cauldrons." At the same time, Spiritual Master Xiao chased away the two demon emperors who attacked the Misty School. "Not only did you save the Misty School, you also saved the ruins. The female disciples of the fragrance cult are very willing to offer their hearts for Spiritual Master Xiao's recovery. Spiritual Master, don't worry, they are all sincere." "Yes, Spiritual Master Xiao." The two beautiful disciples beside him said sincerely, "Senior has done so much for the ruins. Junior is willing to offer our lives to Spiritual Master, as long as we can help Spiritual Master recover as soon as possible." "So that's how it is." Xiaohua finally understood. He thought that Mo Lianxi of the fragrance cult was probing and trying to rope him in, but he didn't expect there to be such a layer of true meaning. Since that was the case, Xiaohua couldn't accept it even more. He gently pulled his arm out of the embrace of the two female disciples. His movements were so careful and gentle, as if he was afraid of touching fragile porcelain. When the two female disciples saw Xiaohua like this, their faces were full of disappointment. However, the luster in their eyes became even brighter, and their arms also loosened. Xiaohua pulled his arm out and cupped his hands. "Sect Master Mo, this Xiao understands your intentions. However, if this Xiao's injuries were to spoil the chastity of these two female disciples, this Xiao's heart will not be at ease even if this Xiao's strength increases greatly." Chastity? What is chastity? Mo Lianxi was slightly stunned and asked back. Xiaohua sweated profusely. Chastity was the concept of Confucian cultivators. The ruins was a corner of the cultivation world. Although Mo Lianxi was the sect master of the fragrance cult, he probably hadn't heard of chastity before, right? However, since that was the case, Xiaohua also understood that this Misty School in the ruins was definitely not the Misty School he was looking for. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua smiled and said, "There's no need to elaborate on what chastity is. Sect Master Mo only needs to know that it's the hardest to bear the grace of a beauty. This Xiao has received the grace of a beauty, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to repay it. Since that's the case, it's better not to touch it. What repayment or no repayment? They were all willing to do this, there's no need for any repayment." Mo Lianxi said disdainfully, if Taoist won't damage his Tao foundation by plucking yin to replenish yang, then feel free to try my fragrance cult's secret technique. You have to know, who knows how many disciples of sects in the ruins have come to beg me, willing to tie the knot with the female disciples of my fragrance cult. In an instant, Xiaohua suddenly understood why Yumingxin treated him like that. He smiled bitterly, and then said seriously, Sect Master Mo. People with different paths cannot make plans together. This old man didn't come for this matter. Hee, good, good. Mo Lianxi smiled and pushed the female disciple in her arms out, and said, people often say that guests should follow the host's wishes. Today, I can only follow the host's wishes. Very good. Xiaohua clapped and said with a smile, Sect Master Mo, please find a secluded hall. I have something important to discuss with Sect Master. Hee, don't be anxious, Taoist Xiao. Mo Lianxi's eyes narrowed slightly again, and said with a smile, I have already sent disciples to find Yumingxin. Taking advantage of this time, I will introduce a few elders of my sect to Taoist. I also have something important to discuss with Taoist. Xiaohua's eyelids twitched, and he said somewhat helplessly, Sect Master Mo, when this Xiao came to spread the fragrance cult, I already saw Yang Haoye who was with Yumingxin. If this Xiao came for my own personal matters, why would I come to spread the fragrance cult? Wouldn't it be better to directly find Yumingxin? Sect Master Mo, if this is the case, wouldn't this Xiao be in trouble again? So Taoist Xiao didn't come for the important matter of Yumingxin. Mo Lianxi answered in a daze. However, this daze was clearly not one of sudden enlightenment. Seeing this, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He stared at Mo Lianxi for a few breaths of time before saying word by word, Sect Head Mo, what do you mean by this? Could it be that if I didn't come for Yumingxin, I can't come to spread the fragrance cult? Or Sect Master Mo already knew that this Xiao would definitely come to spread the fragrance cult, and you are testing this Xiao. Sigh. A trace of gloominess appeared on Mo Lianxi's face. She nodded slightly, and sighed, this one naturally knew that Taoist Xiao would come, and I knew it when I heard Taoist Xiao's name. This one hopes that I heard wrong, and that Taoist Xiao isn't that person. Unfortunately, Taoist Xiao still came. Although this one doesn't know what Taoist Xiao has brought, this one. At this point, Mo Lianxi stopped, looked at the few female disciples on the left, and waved her hand, you all can leave. Yes, Sect Master. The few female disciples bowed and left. Among them, 2 of them looked at Xiaohua reluctantly. After the few female disciples left, Mo Lianxi said, let's go, Taoist Xiao. Let's go to Bright Palace and tell this one, what is the important matter that is enough to make me exterminate the fragrance cult? Ah. Mo Lianxi lifted her foot, but Xiaohua was shocked. The premonition from before was born again, and he asked in a low voice, Sect Master Mo. You already knew that this Xiao was going to bring you the news of exterminating the fragrance cult? Yes. Mo Lianxi's figure slightly paused, and then she turned to look at Xiaohua, and answered with certainty, otherwise, why would this one leave such an order to the disciples? How did you know? Xiaohua followed, still somewhat confused. Mo Lianxi forced a smile, once Taoist Xiao enters Bright Palace, you will naturally know. When Xiaohua followed Mo Lianxi into Bright Palace, he saw that it was a huge hall. The 4 walls were painted with pictures of the desolate era. These pictures were different from the ones Xiaohua had seen before. Aside from giants, mountains, floods, and monsters, there were also many fragments. These fragments seemed to be a whole, and many of the edges were the same. Of course, these fragments were not only scattered within a certain picture, but also scattered between different pictures. Moreover, there were obscure fluctuations emanating from within these fragments. Everywhere Xiaohua's eyes looked at, the fragments emanated a strange and variegated brilliance, and Xiao Hua was actually able to see stars, regions, continents, and so on and so forth through these lights. Xiao Hua frowned, and then his gaze fell on other parts of the picture. The things on these pictures seemed to be engraved on them. Aside from the fluctuations in the fragments, there was also the ubiquitous aura on the pictures. This aura varied according to the things engraved on them. If all these auras were connected together, it would give off a strange feeling of covering and drowning. After looking at the pictures around Bright Palace, Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the main hall. There were a few brocade chairs there, and now several young cultivators were sitting on them. When they saw Xiao Hua and Mo Lianxi enter, they all stood up to welcome them. When everyone came closer, Mo Lianxi stopped and smiled at Xiao Hua. "Daoist Xiao, these are the elders of my aroma sect. I, Chang Min, greet Daoist Xiao." A white-clothed scholar with curved eyebrows smiled and cupped his hands. Then, a green-clothed middle-aged cultivator with a somewhat yellow face cupped his hands. "I, Wu Hong, greet Daoist Xiao." The other was a burly man with a big waist and beard. His voice was also loud and clear. He cupped his hands and shouted, "I, Bai Jianzhong, greet Daoist Xiao. Fellow Taoists, please rise." Xiao Hua hurriedly raised his hand to help everyone up and said with a smile, "Xiao Hua, greet fellow Taoists. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank all forms of support." Chapter 50-56. Just as Black Hound opened its mouth, the soul strands between Xiao Hua's brows turned into 3 big hands and fell into Black Hound's body. However, out of Xiao Hua's expectation, after a while, when the 3 big hands retracted, not a single soul was taken out. Humph. Xiao Hua snorted and opened his illusion breaker Dharma Eye. A fist-sized silver light beam spun and fell into Black Hound's mouth. However, even though the silver light was rotating, there was no soul flying out. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, Xiao Hua had no choice but to close his illusion breaker eye. Daoist which frowned and said, "Fellow cultivator, there must be souls in the soul lamp. I have seen it. Why can't you do it?" Xiao Hua thought for a while and replied, "Fellow cultivator Daoist which can see it, I can sense it too. However, these souls are invisible and can't be taken out by eye. It's like the space in the soul lamp is not on the Dawn Rain continent." "Huh, that must be it." Daoist which laughed, "The space in the soul lamp should be part of the unholy blood sea. All the souls that are sucked in by the soul lamp have already fallen into the unholy blood sea. However, these souls haven't entered the reincarnation cycle. Instead, they became part of the soul lamp and strengthened its power." Senior Jianji, who had been watching from afar, heard this and his expression changed slightly. Jianji was the elder witch of Huda village. How could he not know about the power of the unholy blood sea? He couldn't help but worry, is it possible? While Jianji was asking, Ji Ming and the other elders also looked hopeful. The unholy blood sea was created by Huda God, and there was also the unholy blood sea under the Huda village's Yellow Spring Palace. However, they knew that the unholy blood sea might be the real unholy blood sea, but it was definitely not the real unholy blood sea in the legends. It was most likely a fragment of the blood sea's space. However, since the space in the soul lamp was connected to the unholy blood sea, it had already surpassed the limit of the soul cultivators in Million Meng Mountain. In the records of Million Meng Mountain's Shaman Codex, there was no shaman king who had such a technique. Ha! Xiao Hua smiled and said to Jianji, "Elder witch, don't worry. As long as Zai's soul is still in the soul lamp, I can take his soul out." Saying this, Xiao Hua slightly raised his hand and a clear water bottle appeared in his hand. "This is..." Seeing Xiao Hua take out a bottle with a willow branch inside, Jianji was stunned. It was not the spirit treasure he thought it was. Jianji's soul sense naturally landed on the clear water bottle and the willow branch. The clear water bottle had traces of being a Buddhist item, but the willow branch was no different from a normal willow branch. Could it be that Taoist Xiao wants to use this bottle? Jianji's gaze landed on the clear water bottle. However, Xiaohua's actions were out of everyone's expectations. Xiaohua gently extended his right hand and used his thumb and index finger to pick up the willow branch. He looked at Ziye's body and then looked at the soul-losing lamp. Swoosh! A 10-colored multicolored radiance that was invisible to everyone but was exceptionally clear in Xiaohua's eyes rushed out from the willow branch and landed precisely on the soul-falling lamp. Ah! Under Jianji and the hundreds of shamans' astonishment, the three-headed black hound's body suddenly split open. A small rainbow bridge was placed between Ziye's body and the three-headed black hound's stomach. On the rainbow bridge, 10 colors flowed rapidly like rainwater. The green light of the soul-falling lamp appeared dim in the midst of the 10 colors on the rainbow bridge. An indescribable warmth was born from the bottom of everyone's heart. Ziyi. Just as everyone's heart was filled with warmth, they saw a soul standing on top of the rainbow bridge with its eyes closed. Along with the 10 colors flowing out. Jianji couldn't help but cry out. This was because he couldn't see the rainbow bridge, nor could he see the 10 colors. He also couldn't see the soul power or magic power of Xiaohua's divine ability. Xiaohua had a smile on his face. He held the Permitha in one hand and quietly waited for Ziye's soul to pass through the rainbow bridge and enter his body. Then, he gently shook his hand and retrieved the Permitha. He inserted it back into the clear water bottle and sent it back to his Naiwan palace. The rainbow bridge disappeared and the three-headed black hound's body slowly returned to its original form. When Xiaohua retrieved the soul strands, the soul-falling lamp also returned to its original form. However, the soul-falling lamp's flame was a little dim now. The color wasn't emerald green, it was actually a little mixed. Xiaohua opened his mouth and a few more green seal words appeared. Just as he was about to spit them out, he closed his mouth again and raised his hand to point at the soul-falling lamp. The soul-falling lamp slowly flew to Jianji's eyes. Xiaohua said, "I'm sorry, Elder Wu. Your soul-falling lamp is a little damaged. However, you don't seem to have complete control over the soul-falling lamp. Now is a good opportunity. In the bone that I gave you, there's a secret technique to refine soul treasures. You can take this opportunity to refine the soul-falling lamp." Okay. Jianji nodded excitedly and kept the soul-falling lamp. He said, "Senior, quickly revive Ziyi. This junior will then refine the soul-falling lamp." This is easy to say, but it's also troublesome. Xiaohua looked at Taoist Wu and cupped his hands. "I'll have to trouble you next." It's troublesome for Taoist Xiao, but it's simple for I. As Taoist Wu spoke, he also showed off. He took out the brush and under the urging of his soul power, a strong life force was produced from the tip of the brush. It was really like adding the finishing touch to a dragon and landing on the space between Ziye's eyebrows. In an instant, the entire world fell silent. Even the whistling wind stopped. Pa! The brush touched the space between Ziye's eyebrows. A sound like a sprout breaking out of the ground came from nowhere. It could be the sky, the earth, the space between Ziye's eyebrows, the brush, or even the hope of everyone. Following this sound, swoosh! Thousands of light shadows surged out from Taoist Wu's body and rushed between heaven and earth. Gusts of hurricanes suddenly appeared in the sky. Rumble! At the same time, deep in the ground, there was also a rumbling sound, and the earth shook. Ka ka ka. Several thick lightning bolts also struck out from the void. It was like a punishment flashing above the Huda stronghold. However, after a while, Ziyi still lay there quietly and didn't move at all. Xiaohua frowned slightly. When he looked through the soul bridge again, he saw that the mysterious dark clouds had already produced a faint life force. However, this life force was like a seed that was sprouting. Although the life force was strong, it was still lacking like a spring breeze. I see. A thought flashed through Xiao Hua's mind. Then, a trace of confidence appeared on his face. He quietly opened his mouth and the refined Xiantian qi in his middle dantian was slightly activated. Pooh! The life force that had been refined for tens of thousands of years entered Ziye's soul. Pooh-pu. Countless silent sounds rang out from various parts of the mysterious dark clouds. Swoosh swoosh. The solidified dark clouds began to move. Elder sister, dodge. Amidst the rumbling thunder, Ziye's panicked voice came out of his mouth. His arms and legs that had been motionless for hundreds of years suddenly began to move, just like Ziyi, who had blocked Zi Ming's path that day. Unfortunately, Ziyi hadn't moved for hundreds of years. He struggled a few times but didn't get up. However, on his pale face, a pair of eyes that Xiao Hua was familiar with opened. Ziye's eyes opened first. A pair of pitch-black eyes flashed before they closed again. Ziyi called out in panic, "Elder sister, where are you? Why is it so bright here?" Ziyi. Jianji flew to Ziye's side and reached out to hold his hand. He said kindly, "Don't be afraid. With this old man here, the soul-falling lamp can't hurt you and Zi Ming, Elder Wu, you're back." Ziyi was very familiar with Jianji's voice. He actually panicked a little and said, Elder sister and I, just wanted to help you light the soul-falling lamp. This was all my idea. Please don't punish elder sister. He, good child, Jianji laughed and said, you and Zi Ming are both good children. Why would this old man blame you? You're tired. Sleep for a while. Okay, Elder Wu. Ziyi said. He was also tired and really fell asleep. Senior. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Jianji hurriedly explained, Ziye's soul left his body for too long. When he came out of the soul-falling lamp, this junior felt that his soul had dissipated a lot. Now that he entered his body, he wasn't used to it. After he recovers, this junior will bring him to thank senior for saving his life. As Jianji explained, the group of elders didn't speak. The Bone Palace was completely silent. This was a real miracle that they had never heard of. They really didn't know how to express the shock and surprise in their hearts. Daoist Xiao, Daoist Xiao. At this moment, at the foot of the mountain in the distance, a white-haired old woman flew over and shouted loudly, "You're back. You. Can you really revive Ziyi? G-Man." Xiao Hua recognized this old woman at a glance. Wasn't she G-Man of the Back Earth stronghold? Qing Hong. Jianji frowned and scolded in a low voice, "Why are you here? Today is the God-praying ceremony. Even if you are G-Man, you can't barge into the Bone Palace without permission." Elder Wu. The former G-Man of the Back Earth stronghold begged, "I just want to ask, can Daoist Xiao really revive Ziyi?" Jianji thought for a while, raised his hand and pointed at Ziyi, "It's not a matter of whether or not you can. Ziyi has already been revived." Jianji looked at Ziye's body in disbelief. Seeing Ziye's nose moving slightly and his eyelashes trembling, he didn't need to get close to know that everything Jianji said was true. She couldn't help but cry. She threw herself in front of Xiao Hua and kowtowed, Daoist Xiao, please pity me. Back then, I didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and offended you. I deserve to die, I will die immediately. However, that Zi Yen of mine is innocent. Can you save him? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-57. Xiao Hua knew clearly about Zi Yan's death. Humans possessed by demons had always had incomplete souls, making it difficult for them to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Moreover, Ziyan had died many years ago, and was different from Ziyi. How could Xiaohua revive Ziyan? Xiaohua helplessly helped Chu Hong up and said, "Ji man, please get up. It's not that I don't want to help, but Ziyan didn't leave his body behind." Xiaohua was about to tell the truth, but Jianji hurriedly transmitted his voice to him. Xiaohua was stunned, and then said with a bitter smile, "He is the hero of Huda village, but I have no other way, Taoist Master Xiao, you will definitely have a way." Chu Hong's body softened, and she was about to kneel down again. Xiaohua looked at Chu Hong's white hair and her wrinkles, and couldn't help but sigh. He thought to himself, I remember that I had already given her the rejuvenation pill back then. It has only been a few hundred years, so she shouldn't be this old. I'm afraid that her yearning is like poisonous wine, erasing her youth. Xiaohua still wanted to say a few more words of consolation, but suddenly, a ray of pure and holy light soared into the sky from the eastern horizon. Then, a tsunami-like aura surged over. It was even more majestic than the rain from before, and instantly drowned everyone. Then, there was no more then. Amidst the light, Angel Zhang Jia flashed 7 wings of light and landed in the sky above Huda village. His cold eyes swept across everyone, and then landed on Taoist Witch. Oh! When Xiaohua saw Zhang Jia's sudden appearance, he couldn't help but frown. Although Zhang Jia had been cold before, his eyes had been pure. Occasionally, he would even reveal a bit of shyness. But now, Zhang Jiajin's originally pure and holy feathers of light were covered in ink-like rust spots. These rust spots were not very similar to demonic patterns. They looked like ghost heads, but these ghost heads were also different from the ghost heads that Xiaohua had seen before. Even on the white robe that Zhang Jia was wearing, there were some strange patterns that appeared on it. It looked very horrifying. An aura of absolute decay, depravity, and blasphemy seeped out. Not to mention the eyes, even the nearby void revealed the smell of decay. Zhang Jia. Xiaohua asked, "What's wrong with you? Could it be that he's possessed? Where's Higan?" Zhang Jia ignored Xiaohua as he stared at Priest Witch and asked. Taoist Witch glanced at Zhang Jia and said, "Nirvana is not in I's hands." "How could it not be in your hands?" Zhang Jia's eyes glowed as he looked at Taoist Sorcerer. He seemed to be threatening him. "I've sensed the aura of the Nirvana realm twice in the Yilan continent. After that, it never appeared again. Now that I've arrived at the Lost Land after going through untold hardships, I've once again sensed the Nirvana realm before I've even left the mountain range. Within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, only you and Xiaohua have the ability to control the Nirvana realm. Xiaohua was not a human from the Lost Land, so it is impossible for him to have the Nirvana realm, so the Nirvana realm can only be in your hands." Ha ha ha. Taoist Witch laughed and pointed at Xiaohua. "How do you know that Xiaohua isn't a human from the Lost Land? To tell you the truth, he is the real Tao sect cultivator from the Lost Land." "Damn it, how dare you lie to me?" Zhang Jia turned to look at Xiaohua. His eyes were filled with fanaticism and anger. Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly waved his arm and pushed Chu Hong to Elder Wu Jianji. He shouted, "This is the angel from the Holy Light realm. She has some grudges with me, but it has nothing to do with you. Guard the soul cultivator inheritance well and wait for the new Witch King to return." As he spoke, Xiaohua's body swayed and he teleported to the sky. Taoist Witch did not hesitate. He also flew away with lightning surging around him. "Where do you think you're going?" Zhang Jia was even more furious when he saw the two of them escaping without saying a word. He fanned his light feathers crazily. Within a radius of a few hundred miles, light shadows scurried around like wild wolves. Not only did it disrupt the aura of the space, it also overturned the group of elders. Many of the palaces were even destroyed. While the elders covered their heads and fled, they all released their soul weapons to defend themselves. Fortunately, Zhang Jie was not deeply possessed. His goal was only the Nirvana realm. As he fanned his light feathers, he turned into a light shadow and chased after Xiaohua and Daoist Witch. In less than 5 minutes, Xiaohua released his spiritual force to take a look and stopped in mid-air with Daoist Witch again. Zhang Jie followed behind them. When he saw the two of them stop, he didn't say a word. Instead, he hissed and crossed his arms in front of his chest, chanting an indescribable syllable. Shua. A huge cross-shaped light sword emerged from his arms. Then, as Zhang Jie opened his arms, Wu. The cross-shaped light sword fell from the sky, enveloping nearly 1,000 li of space around Xiaohua. He. Xiaohua chuckled. It's just a shadow condensed by the power of faith. If we were in the Holy Light realm, I might not be able to defeat you. But on the Dawn Rain continent, how can you be my opponent? As he spoke, lightning surged around Xiaohua's body as he displayed his transcendence golden body. Then, he clenched his left hand into a fist. Without releasing the demonic blade, he swung his arm towards the cross-shaped light sword. Whether it was the light sword or the fist, wherever they went, the void collapsed. The sound of thunder was endless. Boom. With a loud bang, the sky was torn apart, the clouds were torn apart, and the light sword condensed by the power of faith was shattered into pieces. Like the broken heart of glazed glass, they fell bit by bit. Xiaohua's huge golden body tumbled in midair. The arrogant lightning flames around him were mostly annihilated by the cross-shaped light sword. If Xiaohua was in such a state, how much better could Zhang Jie be? She was also like a huge swan, tumbling in the wind for a long time without stopping. Daoist Witch only looked on indifferently and did not make a move. When the hurricane, airwaves, and spatial cracks calmed down, Daoist Witch said, Zhang Jie, did you come to the Lost Land for the Nirvana realm? Of course. Zhang Jie's body landed, and a trace of dark red appeared on her face. That red was very bright, like the color of blood. She said angrily, that's my Holy Light realm's sacred weapon. How can it fall into the hands of others? Even if I become the angel of sin, I must take it back. He. Xiaohua stood firmly and his body swayed, landing beside Daoist Witch. The two of them surrounded Zhang Jie and said, since it's in my hands and has the word Xiao engraved on it, how can I return it to you? Besides, this willow branch doesn't have the Holy Light realm's name engraved on it. I didn't steal it, nor did I rob it. I openly exchanged it with 10 mid-grade spirit stones. 10 mid-grade spirit stones. Damn it. Zhang Jie had been in the Yilan continent for a long time and knew the concept of 10 mid-grade spirit stones. Xiaohua had long forgotten how many spirit stones were used to exchange for this willow branch. He was just casually saying it, but this made Zhang Jie flustered and exasperated. How dare a human blaspheme my Holy Light realm's magic? You all deserve to die. Zhang Jie. Xiaohua saw that Zhang Jie was about to attack again and immediately said, I know that you came to this realm to find the Nirvana realm. But this is the Lost Land, also known as the Dawn Rain continent. Just like the Yilan continent, it belongs to the Aparagodania continent of the 4 great continents. You must know that in the 4 great continents, the highest level of Taoism is the tribulation stage. I've already reached the peak of the tribulation stage, the limit of the laws of heaven and earth. You may be stronger than me, but on the Dawn Rain continent, you can't defeat me. Actually, to tell you the truth, even if you defeat me, you can't get the Nirvana realm. So, I advise you to give up on this thought and get rid of your demonic nature first. I see that you haven't fallen too deeply into your demonic nature, and now there's still hope. Sigh. Zhang Jie heard and knew that Xiaohua's words were very reasonable. He held back the crazy demonic nature in his heart and sighed. Xiaohua, you're wrong. I came to this realm by chance, and not specifically to find the Nirvana realm. But seeing my holy light realm's sacred weapon left here, how can I not make a move? As for the so-called demonic nature, it actually doesn't exist in us angels. What we've been infected with is sin. An unforgivable sin. I was originally injured, and now that the bitter sea's blood waves have entered my body, this sacred body has been infected with sin. Soon, I will become an angel of sin. Without the holy light realm's holy ointment, I'm afraid there's no way to expel it. But the holy ointment is also rare in the holy light realm. What's the holy ointment? Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but think of the holy light realm's sacred weapon that was suppressed by the demon venerable's corpse at the heaven sacrificial abyss. That thing clearly had a medicinal smell. The holy ointment is refined with 500 shekels of myrrh, half the amount of cinnamon, 250 shekels of calamus, 500 shekels of cinnamon, and 1 excion of olive oil. When it came to the origin of the holy ointment, Zhang Jie opened his mouth and spoke. However, without waiting for Zhang Jie to finish, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the sacred weapon with a medicinal smell. He asked, Zhang Jie, I can't remember even if you say so much. Why don't you take a look and see if this sacred weapon has any effect on you? Holy ointment. Zhang Jie was also dumbfounded. He never thought that there would be a day when his wish would come true. He had just said the 3 words holy ointment, and the holy ointment, which was rare even in the holy light realm, was so easily taken out by Xiao Hua and given to him. Ah! It's really the holy ointment. Xiao Hua was also dumbfounded. He shouted, I thought this was a sacred weapon. Zhang Jie was a little hesitant. He didn't know whether he should snatch it or not. Xiao Hua didn't hesitate. He hurriedly handed the container to Zhang Jie and said, This Xiao doesn't know how to use this holy ointment, so I'll give it to you. You can use it yourself. Okay. Zhang Jie took the container and replied, The holy ointment of my holy light realm is very simple to use. As he spoke, Zhang Jie raised the container. A liquid with the fragrance of oil, medicinal smell, and even holy aura gushed out from the container and poured down. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you fellow Taoist, Chuan Tong, for your gift. Thank you everyone for your support. Chapter 50-58. As soon as the holy ointment was released, hymns resounded in the area within a radius of 10,000 miles. Holy light shone out from the liquid, and within the holy light pure balsamine flowers, sparkling olive branches, and plump grapes were all revealed. A feeling of satisfaction and happiness involuntarily rose from the bottom of Xiao Hua's heart. The holy ointment seemed to be colorless, but when it poured down from Angel Zhang Jie's head, it quickly infected Zhang Jie's long hair, forehead, and neck. As it slid down her white robe, it also seeped into her spirit body. Countless blood-colored shadows howled in anguish as they were annihilated by the holy ointment. Countless pitch-black shadows were also expelled from Zhang Jie's body by the holy ointment, turning into black threads that fell into the void. However, when the holy ointment had covered all of Zhang Jie's spiritual body and even dripped down to her ankles, hundreds of tiny black lines were still hiding inside her spiritual body like poisonous snakes, entangling her heart and other organs. Sigh. Zhang Jie lowered her head to look at the black threads in her spirit body. She seemed to be muttering to herself, but also seemed to be explaining to Xiao Hua, wearing a human body is really troublesome. Not only is it tainted with humanity, it is also unknowingly soaked in sin. Humans are born with sin. Since they wear human clothes, they naturally fall into the shackles of sin. Xiao Hua didn't understand and asked curiously, Zhang Jie, my human race's Confucian cultivators have a saying, humans are born with good natures. Similar in nature, different habits. I wonder what you mean by humans are born with evil natures. Moreover, didn't you say that this holy ointment is a good thing to expel sin and heal injuries? Why can't it help you recover? Zhang Jie looked at Xiao Hua, then looked at the utensils above her head and said, humans are born with the appearance of a child, ignorant of the inside and outside, like a blank sheet of paper. But in reality, their nature has already been condensed. This is something that cannot be changed by any environment. Moreover, since they are humans, they naturally become the residents of sin. In this world, there is no body that is free of sin. How can it not be that humans are born with evil natures? This. Xiao Hua smiled and said, if that is the case, then only the spirit bodies of angels are free of sin, right? Of course. Zhang Jie said without hesitation, only the spirit bodies created by us holy masters are free of sin. Forget it. Xiao Hua didn't argue with her and smiled, let's not talk about this anymore. You should hurry up and expel the sin of the human form. But it's a little troublesome. Zhang Jie raised his eyebrows and raised his hands. He made a strange hand gesture and placed it in front of his chest. Then, he began to chant praises. Gradually, the sound of prayers could be heard. Xiao Hua couldn't understand this prayer, but he could feel the sincerity in it. This prayer was low at first, then it became louder. The olive branches, grapes, and other objects that had appeared in the sky previously gradually gave off cold air. Boulders, streams of water, sharp swords, and cross-shaped stars appeared. When the Shitsi stars filled the sky, Zhang Jie's praise turned into a hymn. This hymn was different from the one Xiao Hua had heard before. It was filled with grief, sadness, disappointment, and helplessness. Moreover, the rhythm of the hymn became increasingly low and silent. It was as if the entire world was filled with despair. All of a sudden, all of the cross-shaped stars glowed with blood-red light. Then, the container filled with holy ointment fell again. A stream of bright red liquid flowed out from the container and poured onto Zhang Jie's head. Io! Xiao Hua was shocked when he saw that the color of the stream was actually bright red. He thought that something strange had happened. Just as he was about to raise his hand to stop it, a pure and holy lamb suddenly appeared at the location of the stream and all the Shitsi stars. This lamb looked very peaceful as it laid there. Its eyes were filled with incomparable compassion. What's going on? Xiao Hua was stunned. Looking at the purity and holiness of the lamb, he retracted his hand. Because this holiness was very pure, it had nothing to do with the blood sea. However, just as Xiao Hua retracted his hand, the lamb let out a mournful cry. It was filled with disappointment. Blood gushed out from its body, and in a short moment, the blood soaked all the Shitsi stars. Even the holy vessels were filled with the color of blood. The stream turned into blood and flowed down. At the same time, a vast and unparalleled holy power actually rushed out from the trickling blood, and pounced towards Xiao Hua with a power that was 10,000 times more ferocious than the power to topple the heavens and overturn the earth. Xiao Hua didn't have the slightest ability to resist, and was instantly pushed thousands of kilometers away by this holy power. However, what allowed Xiao Hua to feel at ease was that even though this holy energy possessed the ability to obliterate the heavens and the earth, the aura within it revealed benevolence, and when it descended onto Xiao Hua's golden body, it was a few times gentler than a cool breeze, and it didn't even shake the golden body in the slightest. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. He raised his head again and saw that the area within 10,000 li was filled with love. Although the Shitsi stars were filled with the color of blood, this color was completely different from the color of the netherworld's blood sea and the sea of bitterness. A kind of clarity, a kind of kindness, a kind of forgiveness, and an incomparable love came from this color of blood. The entire heaven and earth was like this. Zhang Jie was filled with the color of blood. Wherever the blood flowed, the black threads that Zhang Jie called sin were swept away. What depravity, what blasphemy, what decay, all turned into nothingness in this blood. Boom! When the blood dripped onto Zhang Jie's feet, a fresh surge of life emerged from Zhang Jie's ankle and rushed against the flow to Zhang Jie's entire body. Ha! An obscure holy language came from Zhang Jie's mouth. Zhang Jie's 7 layers of wings spread open again. Layers of holy flames leaped out from the void like the sun. A huge impatience flower appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. This impatience flower bloomed petal by petal. It was incomparably dazzling. Zhang Jie is about to advance. Taoist witch, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Don't let her leave. She might be needed to break the immortal array. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes. He also saw that beside Zhang Jie's light feather, another light feather was born. However, this light feather only had an outline and was not clear. But this light feather rumbled. Rumble. Thunder immediately fell from the sky. The heaven and earth laws of the Dawn Rain continent fell like a rope, imprisoning all the laws of the Dawn Rain continent. However, following this thunder, tens of thousands of pure white clouds flowed in the sky. An aura that surpassed the heaven and earth landed on Zhang Jie's body. Zhang Jie. Xiao Hua suddenly spoke. What are you cultivating for? Xiao Hua. Zhang Jie did not answer Xiao Hua's question. Instead, he said indifferently, you gave me the holy ointment, which is a great kindness. Also, I'll be honest with you. In the container you gave me, other than the holy ointment, there's also the holy blood. The holy blood is supreme in my sacred light realm. I don't know how you got the holy blood in the mortal realm, but I'll remember this kindness. However, kindness is kindness. This is a personal matter. I can't abandon the great love of the sacred Lord for such a personal matter. Higan is the crystallization of the sacred Lord's great love. I can't abandon her. So, Xiao Hua, I'm sorry. With that, Zhang Jie raised his hand. An arm as pure as crystal flew across thousands of miles and landed in front of Xiao Hua. The slender hand grabbed at Xiao Hua with a power that surpassed the heaven and earth. Before the slender hand landed, the space around Xiao Hua was already imprisoned. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Taoist witch and said, look, you said you wanted her help. Great, now you're attacking her directly. Even so, do you think we're afraid of her? Taoist witch said disapprovingly. If she doesn't agree, we'll beat her until she agrees. Xiao Hua naturally would not allow himself to be captured. His figure flashed and tens of thousands of thunderbolts surged around him, shattering the imprisonment force inch by inch. Xiao Hua. Zhang Jie's voice sounded like the sound of heaven. Don't struggle. I only want Higan. I won't hurt you. Higan is much more useful in my hands than in yours. Xiao Hua faintly smiled, then he raised his hand and patted his head. Boom. Buddhist light soared into the sky. Wherever the Buddhist light fell, it immediately collided with the holy light of 10,000 li radius. Countless, sizzling sounds came one after another. At the same time, Xiao Hua formed a Buddhist seal with his hand and chanted the name of Buddha, Namo Maitreya Buddha. Then, his Buddhist palm gently blocked Zhang Jie's slender hand. Boom. Another rumbling sound rose into the sky. The entire sky of 10,000 li radius was like boiling water. Buddhist sect. Zhang Jie's slender hand was blocked. However, with the power of the holy light, she was not at a disadvantage. Her crystal-like arm only paused for a moment before it reached out with lightning speed. Zhang Jie was shocked. The anger on his face was even more intense. His reborn hand became even stronger. You're a disciple of the Buddhist sect. So what if I'm a disciple of the Buddhist sect? There's even a soul cultivator witch emperor here. Seeing that the situation was not good, Taoist witch slapped the top of his head. The 3 corpses in thunder also surged again. The supreme witch body turned into a majestic mountain. An imposing manner that was close to the law of heaven and earth forced the holy light to retreat. Angels can pity the world. Sacred Lord can redeem people with love. Why can't the Buddhist sect save the world with compassion? Why can't the Taoist sect protect the people with compassion? Xiao Hua laughed loudly. His voice was like thunder. If the angels of the holy light world are as narrow-minded as you, how can the holy light world be the mortal enemy of the Buddhist kingdom? As Xiao Hua's voice sounded, the Buddhist light within thousands of miles spread. The golden body of Namo Maitreya Buddha statue slowly appeared. However, because the Dawn Rain continent was the realm where Xiao Hua had attained fruition, the golden body of the Buddha statue was its original form. As Xiao Hua's phoenix eyes slanted, not only did lightning surge in his eyes, they also surged with an indescribable benevolence. An aura that cherished the world and pitied the people of the world surged out from the Buddha light. This aura was clearly much weaker than the holy aura of the holy light realm, but the benevolence in that aura was not the slightest bit inferior to the great love in the holy aura. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-59. What was special was that the Guanyin Bodhisattva was holding the clear water bottle in her left hand. The green paramitha was quietly inserted into the clear water bottle. Under the clear water bottle, there was an inexplicable demonic aura supporting the Buddhist item. Indescribable vitality, indescribable power of death, and indescribable harmony of life and death were perfectly presented in the Guanyin Bodhisattva's left hand. You actually created the Namo Merciful Guanyin. Zhang Jia obviously knew about the Namo Merciful Guanyin. Her eyes flashed with surprise. She couldn't help but cover her mouth with her other hand as if she couldn't believe it. However, Zhang Jia's astonishment didn't stop there. Because when Xiao Hua's Nanwu Merciful Guanyin Buddha's golden body appeared, although the Buddha's light was very faint, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared in the boundless heaven and earth thousands of miles away from the holy light. Billions of tiny hair-like crystal objects flew out from all over the earth. These crystal objects just started to look like hair, but in just a few breaths, the hair turned into a trickle, and in just a moment, the trickle turned into a river, and in another moment, the river turned into a river. Angel Zhang Jia was a saint body condensed from the power of faith. She was very sensitive to the power of faith in the heaven and earth. She saw the tiny strands that filled the heaven and earth and couldn't help but open her mouth and exclaim, "Faith, the stream of faith. How is this possible?" Zhang Jia's spirit body stopped in place, and a sense of crisis rose from the bottom of her heart. She had a premonition that if this vast power of faith rushed over, her spirit body would be drowned by this river of faith, and she would be crushed. She hurriedly withdrew her arm. She didn't have time to defeat Xiao Hua. She wanted to save herself, but she was still too late. Because in just a blink of an eye, the power of faith that had condensed into a river had turned into a vast ocean, setting off endless waves between heaven and earth and surging violently toward the Namo Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Guanyin Bodhisattva put his palms together with a compassionate look on his face. He ignored Zhang Jia and slowly knelt down in the air, chanting the name of Buddha. Namo Merciful Buddha, Guanyin Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Namo Buddha, Namo Wufa, Namo Monk, Namo Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. Shi. Garavado, 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 Garavado. God of heaven's net, God of earth's net, people leave the calamity, it is difficult to leave the body, all calamities turn into dust. Namo Maha Prajna Paramitha. Along with the recitation of the Guanyin heart mantra, thousands of Buddhas appeared on the left side of the Guanyin Buddha statue. Namo Maitreya Buddha. The Buddha's name was chanted. Sounds of chanting could be heard. Heavenly flowers fell, fairies danced, and dragons roared in the surroundings. The power of faith was like a boundless ocean. Wherever it passed, the thunderous sound caused by Zhang Jie's advancement and the thousands of pure white clouds in the sky had already been diluted. Only the aura that surpassed the heavens and the earth still protected the terrified Zhang Jie, swaying in the billowing Buddha light like a small boat in the storm. The river of faith that was incomparably powerful in the eyes of others fell on Xiaohua's side and became tamed again. First, it covered Xiaohua's Buddha statue, then like a cheerful little wave, it pounced on the Buddha light around Xiaohua's body. Swish! Behind Xiaohua's head, where there should be light, a vortex the size of a grain of rice quietly appeared. Although this vortex was small, its suction force was extremely strong. As soon as it was born, it immediately sucked in the stream of faith. Woo woo! As the stream of faith fell into the vortex, a strange whistling sound began to resound between heaven and earth. The chanting of thousands of Buddhas slowly spread, covering the entire sky and the ground. Even the vortex began to expand. In the end, a vortex the size of light behind the head of an ordinary bodhisattva was formed. The endless stream of faith surged into the back of Xiaohua's head and turned into incomparably pure crystal threads that fell into the crystal-like divinity the size of a soybean. Zhang Jie used the power of the holy light to struggle bitterly in the ocean of faith. Although the power of the holy blood was incomparably powerful, there were signs of it collapsing in the ocean of faith. Zhang Jie chanted the hymn without any panic in his heart. He was just watching the rare miracle in front of him as if he was watching a fire. Let this poor Taoist lend you a hand. Taoist witch's figure appeared from the ocean of faith. As he spoke, a green seal text appeared between his eyebrows. Layers of 3 corpses in lightning turned into streams of light and crashed down, separating Zhang Jie's holy light and Xiaohua's Buddha light. Even the 3 corpses in lightning protected Zhang Jie. Seeing the lightning fall, the heavy pressure from before suddenly reduced by more than half. Zhang Jie's face revealed a smile as he looked at Taoist witch and said, "Thank you." Taoist witch looked at Zhang Jie's calmness and said curiously, "You're actually not afraid? If Taoist Xiao wants to deal with you, he doesn't need to use any magical powers. He only needs to use the river of faith to completely eliminate you. After all, you're just a spiritual body condensed from the power of faith. The river of faith of the Buddhist sect is your natural nemesis. What's there to be afraid of?" Zhang Jie smiled. Destruction is the beginning of rebirth. It's a step that every angel has to go through. We angels are born for love. We are born as slaves of the Holy Lord. We are born to fight for the Holy Lord. When we die, we turn into faith and return to the hands of the Holy Lord. I'm afraid of falling into sin, not being destroyed. I understand. Taoist witch nodded. No wonder the Holy Light realm can be compared to the Buddhist kingdom. The path of faith is indeed powerful. Xiaohua's Buddha fruit is very strange. Seeing that Taoist witch was protecting him without any intention of harming him, Zhang Jie didn't put up any defenses against Taoist witch. He looked at the whirlpool behind Xiaohua's head and said curiously, "Why doesn't he have a Buddha source? Isn't it said that every Buddha who achieves Buddha fruit has a Buddha source behind their head? Without a Buddha source, how can he be taken to the heavenly gate?" Taoist witch didn't know what a Buddha source was, but after hearing Zhang Jie's words, he already knew that it was the commonly known light. He smiled and said, "If Taoist Xiao has a Buddha source, wouldn't he be taken to the Buddhist kingdom?" Yeah, he achieved the hardest Buddha fruit to achieve, Namo Great Compassion Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Naturally, he would go to the Buddhist kingdom. Zhang Jie said curiously, "If not, why did he achieve the Buddha fruit of Bodhisattva Buddha?" Buddha fruit is formed by nature. It's done with the intention and obtained without the intention. Taoist witch answered in a low voice, "As long as he has a merciful heart, he doesn't care about the Buddhist kingdom or the demon alliance." Ah! Zhang Jie was stunned and blurted out, "Yeah, I know. Xiaohua is a Taoist cultivator. Why did he go to the Buddhist kingdom?" Until now, Zhang Jie suddenly realized that Xiao Hua was a Taoist cultivator. Even if he had a Buddha fruit, he didn't have light or Buddha source. He couldn't go to the Buddhist kingdom. Zhang Jie wasn't someone who didn't know how to be flexible. Seeing such a situation, he rolled his eyes and made up his mind. A smile appeared on his face. Xiao Hua had indeed left a lot of virtue in Dawn Rain Continent. It took no less than 10 days for the stream of faith to rush in majestically like this. Seeing the morning sun rise from the east once again, the Buddhist radiance in the entire sky gradually dimmed. The Buddha light was extinguished. The heavenly lady and the heavenly dragon also left. The heavenly flowers turned into auspicious flowers and fell around the millions of Meng mountains. The clear sound of the wooden fish and the chanting of sutras dissipated. Xiao Hua's huge golden Buddha statue fell and shrunk along with the decline of the magnificent scene. Behind Xiao Hua's head, the soybean-sized crystal-like godhead had now become even bigger. It looked like the nuts of an ordinary mountain village. At the edge of the godhead, hundreds of millions of thin threads stretched out and disappeared into the void. At the other end of every thin thread was an incomparably devout heart. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Xiao Hua chanted the name of Buddha and withdrew his Buddha statue. He returned to his original appearance as a Taoist cultivator. Then, Xiao Hua looked at Zhang Jie and said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I've destroyed your path back to the sacred light realm." Not only did Xiao Hua not blame him for stealing the higan, but he even apologized first. Angel Zhang Jie was upset. He looked at the higan in Xiao Hua's hand and whispered, "Praise the sacred Lord. It's not your fault. It's all my fault." "Then how are you going to return to the sacred light realm?" Xiao Hua asked again. "Don't worry, sacred Lord." Zhang Jie smiled, "Although my injuries haven't healed, my strength has already surpassed the laws of heaven and earth in the lost land. After a few more years of recuperation, I only need to reveal the hidden sacred light. The path of light to the sacred light realm will definitely appear again." "That's good." Xiao Hua grinned and said, "If because of this Xiao, an angel was implicated and fell to the mortal world, then this Xiao's sin would be huge." Sigh. Zhang Jie didn't answer Xiao Hua's question. Instead, he sighed, "I finally understand why you can prove the most difficult Namo Maitreya Buddha fruit in the Buddhist kingdom. Not to mention other things, with the heart to judge others by your own standards and the heart to easily forget the bad intentions of others, you'll definitely be the Guanyin Bodhisattva. It may seem difficult to others, but to me, it's extremely easy." Xiao Hua replied, "Because this is my nature, I don't need to cultivate or pursue 10,000 laws following the heart." Following the heart. Zhang Jie pondered, "This seems to be the principle of the devil sect, right? All Taoists are laws." Xiao Hua waved his hand, "Not to mention the devil sect, Taoism, Buddhism, and so on. Perhaps in the end, they're all laws." Xiao Hua's words were naturally spoken from the bottom of his heart. He had stolen the good fortune of heaven and earth in the Xingyue Palace and listened to the discussion of Dharma. He might not be able to speak of the secrets of Dharma, but a few words were enough for Zhang Jie to swallow. Zhang Jie's spiritual body trembled, and he asked curiously, "All Taoists are laws? Shouldn't it be that all Taoists are laws? That law is a spell, a divine ability." In Xiao Hua's eyes, there was no difference between the sacred light realm and the Buddhist kingdom. He answered very naturally, "This law is the law, the origin." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-60. Even Zhang Jie, who had begun to evolve into a two-winged angel, could only vaguely answer, perhaps. Xiao Hua wanted to say more to Zhang Jie, hoping that she could comprehend and perhaps gain something. However, when he saw that Zhang Jie's strength was not inferior to his and that he had the higan in his hand, he tactfully shut his mouth. Then, Xiaohua looked at Taoist Witch and turned to Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie, I can't give you the higan, okay, I know. Zhang Jie was straightforward. Before Xiaohua could finish, he immediately nodded and said, take it. Huh? Xiaohua was shocked and looked at Taoist Witch. Taoist Witch shrugged, indicating that he knew nothing. That's strange. Xiaohua said in disbelief, you were trying to snatch it just now. Why are you giving up now? My strength hasn't increased either. Why don't you guess? Zhang Jie saw that Xiaohua was actually the Guanyin Bodhisattva of the Buddhist kingdom and let his guard down completely. Xiaohua thought for a while and understood. He nodded and said, I know. Although I'm a Taoist cultivator, I have another identity as the Guanyin Bodhisattva of the Buddhist sect. If the Buddhist kingdom's Bodhisattva sees the higan in my hand, they might not snatch it away. Because I'm a Taoist cultivator, I'll go to the immortal world after I ascend. The higan will also be in the immortal world and won't fall into the hands of the Buddhist kingdom. Your holy light world can rest assured. Therefore, the higan in my hand is the most suitable. Your holy light world won't snatch it away and neither will the Buddhist kingdom. You're right. Zhang Jie nodded. But there are still 2 reasons missing. There are 2 reasons. Tell me. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked. First, in this lost land, my strength is inferior to yours, so I can't snatch it away. Furthermore, if it were an ordinary cultivator, even if they hid the Pramitha in their body or in their storage pouch, I would still be able to sense its aura. However, the Pramitha is in your hands. I can't sense its location at all. Even if I subdue you, I won't be able to find it. If that's the case, how am I supposed to snatch it? Zhang Jie answered, secondly, Namo Great Merciful Guanyin is famous in the Buddhist kingdom and the Holy Light realm. He is also a bodhisattva respected by the angels in the Holy Light realm. With the Nirvana realm in the hands of Guanyin Bodhisattva, we can rest assured. You will only use the Pramitha to save the people, but you will not use it to kill the angels of the Holy Light realm. Speaking of which, I thought of a 3rd reason. Facing such a pure spiritual body, Xiaohua didn't have any other thoughts. He only asked curiously, what other reason is there? Because you have higan. You can kill me anytime you want. Zhang Jie actually told Xiaohua about his shortcomings. Angels like us aren't afraid of being killed, but there's no need for us to court death, right? Alright. Xiaohua was completely defeated. He touched his nose and said, I really don't know what you are thinking. You actually let me know that higan is the nemesis of angels. Are you really not afraid that I will use higan to kill you? Zhang Jie looked at Xiaohua and said, of course I have to tell you. You have higan. Not only are we angels looking for it, but those sin angels are also looking for it. It is more troublesome for the sin angels to get higan than for the Buddhist kingdom. You have so many rivers of faith. You can use higan at will and kill more sin angels. Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said helplessly, I thought you were stupid. Now it seems. I am the stupid one. No one is more stupid than anyone else, and no one is smarter than anyone else. Zhang Jie said. His wings of light began to tremble. It looked like he was about to leave. Don't be anxious. Xiaohua hurriedly raised his hand and said, I have a few things to ask you. Oh. Zhang Jie said curiously, you actually have something to ask me? Your believers are all over the lost land. Xiaohua smiled and said, since you gave me higan, you should tell me how to use it, right? Zhang Jie was stunned and said, can't you already use higan? Why do you need me to tell you? Besides, I don't even know how to use higan. Then. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, you should at least tell me how higan can save lives, right? Zhang Jie still shook his head and said, in this world, only holy spirits can bring people back to life. Because they have the breath of a living person. Higan might be able to save a human soul from hell, but this soul has already been tainted with the aura of death. Without fresh life, without the breath of a living person, it is impossible for him to be revived. Xiaohua thought for a moment and nodded. Since that is the case, I will not ask you anymore. Oh, right, it is normal for you to bring Du Peng and escape from Mount Meru. But why did you bring Bai Fei with you? What about the wings of light on Bai Fei's back? These two. Where did they go? Bai Fei? You know Bai Fei too? Zhang Jia asked curiously. Of course. When I met Bai Fei, you were still in the Yilan continent. Xiaohua nodded and said, Bai Fei was originally a disciple of Taoism in the Lost Land. Damn it. He lied to me again. Zhang Jia, who was as pure as an angel, could not help but curse in a low voice, such an ugly human. Why did I believe him? He did not lie to you. He was using you to cultivate. Xiaohua replied indifferently. Humph. Zhang Jia snorted and said, that day, when you used Higan for the last time in the Lost Land, I sensed it in the Yilan continent and immediately went to the Wuming Mountains. It was at that time that I met Du Peng. But at that time, I did not pay attention to this demon. I wanted to use my own strength to pass through the Wuming Mountains. Unfortunately, Mount Meru was the center of the 4 continents and contained the power of 3,000 worlds. It changed all the laws of the Lost Land, so I could not find the flaw of the Buddha array. The most despicable thing was that the Buddha array used the nether aura of the immemorial sorcerer tribe to disguise the aura of Mount Meru and the aura of the bitter sea of the Buddhist kingdom into the nether blood sea. Even I could not distinguish it, so after several years of trying, I could only give up. I was ready to go back and think of another way. On my way back, I met Bai Fei, who was injured by a soul beast. I saw that his life was in danger, so I saved him from the soul beast's attack. However, I did not like the human race, let alone the male cultivators of Taoism. So, I casually placed him in a secret place and let him recuperate on his own. I was ready to leave. At that time, Bai Fei knelt down and told me his tragic life. He said that he was a disciple of a hermit who had never left the Wuming Mountains and had never seen the outside world. His master was killed by a soul warrior, but he did not want to take revenge. He wanted me to bring him out of the Wuming Mountains. I heard that he was pitiful and his injuries were serious. If I did not help him, he might not be able to come out of the Wuming Mountains. So, I gave him a pair of light feathers and taught him the method of using them. I told him to practice on his own and let him fly out of the Wuming Mountains. When I flew out of the Wuming Mountains, I met Du Peng again. It seemed like he had been guarding the place. When he saw me flying out, he stood in front of me and said that he had a way to help me pass through the Wuming Mountains. Although I hated the devil race more, I had to compromise for the sake of Higan. I discussed with him about how to pass through the Wuming Mountains. When I heard that he did not need me to do anything and only needed to help him pass through the Wuming Mountains, I was a little suspicious. Later on, I tried to find other ways and even used some tricks to get some information from the leader of the failed Immortal Alliance. However, after entering and exiting the Wuming Mountains a few times, I finally gave up trying and decided to work with Du Peng. However, I did not expect to see you and Bai Fei among the human cultivators who went to the Lost Land. I was surprised, so I asked him about it. He said that he wanted to cultivate in the Lost Land and did not want to fight with the cultivators of Taoism Alliance. He wanted to find some peace. I did not mind. When you were suppressed by Mount Sumeru, I did not panic. Mount Sumeru was too powerful, so I could not save you. However, I had many ways to deal with the Buddha formation. When I saved Du Peng as promised, I also saw Bai Fei abandoning the girl named Ji Yun. Although I didn't want to save Bai Fei, he had already seen me and called for help. As an angel, I couldn't leave him in the lurch. Besides, since I had saved the devil race, it was not a big deal to save another human. When I got out of the Buddha formation, I immediately left Du Peng and Bai Fei behind because I felt that I could not resist the burden of sin. If I stayed with these disgusting humans and demons, would not be able to resist the urge to kill them. Just as I was desperately searching for the Prometha, you actually waved the Prometha. Am I not here now? Xiao Hua knew that angels would not lie, so he nodded and said, so, you don't know where Du Peng and Bai Fei are? Yes, I don't know. However, the place I flew out of was not far from the edge of Wumeng Mountain Range. The two of them should be able to leave Wumeng Mountain Range easily. Zhang Jia answered. Daoist Witch suddenly asked, Zhang Jia, did you put Du Peng and Bai Fei together? Of course not. Zhang Jia answered matter-of-factly, Du Peng is from the devil race and Bai Fei is from the human race. I did not dare to put them together. Sigh, angels are angels. Xiao Hua sighed, previously, I did not have a good impression of the sacred light realm, but you gave me a new understanding of the sacred light realm. By the way, Zhang Jia, how did you come to the Yilan continent? Daoist Witch suddenly asked. This. Zhang Jia was a little hesitant, as if he had something to say. He, you think too much. Xiao Hua hurriedly said, Daoist Witch only asked how you came to this realm. He did not ask how you were injured. I see. Zhang Jia thought for a moment and said happily, I saw a spatial crack suddenly appear in the void, and the laws of heaven and earth inside were weaker than the laws of heaven and earth in the sacred light realm. I was looking for a place to rest, so I casually came in. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to Chuan Tong and Only Smoking Half a Cigarette of Gold Nanjing for your support. Chapter 5061. Alright. Seeing how relaxed Zhang Jia was, Xiao Hua shrugged and smiled, then do you know why I'm in such a hurry to come to the lost place? Aren't you a Taoist cultivator from the lost place? Since you're of the same origin as Bai Fei, of course you have to return to the lost place. Zhang Jia said without hesitation. Yes and no. Xiao Hua stopped smiling and said, I'm in such a hurry to return because I want to save billions of lives. What? Billions of lives? Zhang Jia was also stunned and asked curiously, Xiao Hua, do you have such strength? It doesn't matter if I have the strength or not, as long as I have the heart. Xiao Hua replied, I don't know what's going on in the holy light realm, but since you're willing to save Bai Fei, I feel that you can't be left out on this journey to save billions of lives. I. Zhang Jia's tone was a little hesitant, I'm just a servant of the Holy Lord, can I really save billions of lives? How do you know if you don't try? Daoist Witch smiled, how about you say you can't after Daoist Xiao finishes? Alright. Although she was an angel, Zhang Jia wasn't as confident in saving the world as Xiao Hua thought, so she just nodded blankly. Xiao Hua didn't hide anything from Zhang Jia. He explained the situation of the three continents in detail, then looked at Zhang Jia with an expectant expression, so that's how it is. Zhang Jia didn't look particularly shocked, which was very different from the reactions of the Shaman King and Elder Wu. She only nodded, and even said with some hesitation, then, what can I do? Xiao Hua was speechless when he heard this. He thought for a while and smiled, oh right, Zhang Jia, I seem to have asked you a question just now, but you haven't answered it yet. What question? Zhang Jia was stunned. Xiao Hua looked at Zhang Jia and asked word by word, why do you cultivate? Why do I cultivate? Zhang Jia seemed to have never thought about this question. She stared blankly at Xiao Hua and didn't speak for half a cup of tea's time. Xiao Hua wasn't in a hurry and also waited quietly. Finally, Zhang Jia opened her mouth, but she actually asked, Xiao Hua, what's the purpose of your cultivation? Ha! Xiao Hua laughs, speaking of the purpose of my cultivation, there are some things that are hard to say. Because my soul was searched, my early memories were shattered. Although I'm slowly recovering them now, they're still incomplete. However, I vaguely remember that my initial goal was to become stronger so that I could protect my family. Xiao Hua narrated some of the things in his memory, and even talked about how he came to the 3 continents. He said, "This Xiao doesn't dare to say that my cultivation is not for myself, but every time I can rely on my own strength to help others, I will feel happy from the bottom of my heart." Of course, if I were to say that my cultivation was to help others, it would be too hypocritical. It can also be said that my cultivation and by-phase cultivation have no purpose at all. My cultivation is more casual, more of it is due to chance, more of it is due to luck. Therefore, when I face cultivators who cultivate diligently, no matter how strong they are, I respect them a lot. After all, they are the brave ones who go against the current and go against the heavens. Perhaps. Zhang Jie's reaction was completely different from Princess Xia, Ming, and the others. She didn't envy Xiao Hua's rich and colorful life at all. Instead, she said indifferently, "It's really because you don't care that you have such achievements. It's also because of your humble heart that you received the care of heaven and earth. It's not like you don't have a goal in your cultivation. Your goal is to live a carefree life. But because you are free and unfettered, you have a compassionate heart, and also let you put more differences in your heart." Speaking up to here, Zhang Jie's face became pure and holy. He looked at the place where the holy light fell and said sincerely, "I just said to Taoist which that we angels are originally spirits formed by the power of faith of the Holy Lord. Angels are born to be the servants of the Holy Lord, born to be the messengers of believers. The purpose of our cultivation is for the Holy Lord, for the Holy Lord's believers. We fight for the Holy Lord. We fight for our faith. We fight for our glory." Speaking up to here, Zhang Jie looked at Xiao Hua and said, "When I saw you, the first thing I said was, those who walk different paths cannot work together. My Dao isn't your Dao, and your Dao isn't my Dao either. I don't expect you to understand my path, and I also disdain to understand your path. In my eyes, other than the Holy Lord, there is only sin. You and Dupeng, Taoist sect, Buddhist sect, and devil race, there is no difference. As for saving the world and saving the lives of billions of people, that's what the Holy Master wants to do. If the Holy Master wants to save them, then I will save them. If the Holy Master doesn't want to save them, then I won't save them either. This Xiao understands." Xiao Hua stood with a smile. He did not agree with Angel Zhang Jie's thoughts, but he respected Zhang Jie's choice, just like how he did not like Long Shenxi to become a demon, but he respected Long Shenxi's choice. Xiao Hua did not understand the situation of the Holy Light Realm, so he could not judge the Holy Light Realm's right and wrong based on Zhang Jie's words and actions. Moreover, what right did Xiao Hua have to judge the Holy Light Realm's right and wrong? However, Xiao Hua still probed, "Since there is no order from the Holy Lord, that means, you can also help this Xiao save the world." "Of course." Zhang Jie smiled sweetly, "Although angels do not have a sense of self, they only have the Holy Lord and believers. However, good and evil can still be differentiated. When you can do good, why not do it?" "Ha!" Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, with fellow Taoist, "Oh, no, you can't be considered a fellow Taoist. In terms of doing good, I can be considered a fellow Taoist." Zhang Jie rarely agreed to be called a fellow Taoist. Good. Taoist sorcerer also rarely praised, "Fellow Taoist, with this choice, there will definitely be good results in the future." With fellow Taoist support, this Xiao has more confidence in breaking the formation. Xiao Hua was overjoyed, but Zhang Jie's words almost caused Xiao Hua's jaw to drop. She said, "Of course, while doing good deeds, I am also willing to destroy the Buddha Kingdom's Buddha formation and the Buddha Kingdom's plans." Xiao Hua's figure swayed twice. He was a little scared. If Zhang Jie met the Maitreya Buddha, would the two of them fight to the death? Fortunately, after Zhang Jie finished speaking, he frowned and said, "However, Xiao Hua, my injuries have not healed. I still need to borrow the holy oil and holy blood to repair my spiritual body. I can't help you for the time being. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, there is no hurry now. This Xiao still hasn't found any clues to break the formation. It won't be too late for you to make a move when the formation is broken. That's good. Zhang Jie raised his hand and pointed at the utensil above his head. That utensil rumbled and fell into the upper realm's light feather. The light feather swayed and the utensil and other things disappeared. Zhang Jie spread out his light feather and said, then I will leave first. When you are breaking the formation, just call me. Okay, take care, I won't send you off. Xiaohua raised his hand. However, just as Xiaohua raised his hand, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, do you have a communication talisman? Ha! Zhang Jie laughed loudly. The light feather trembled and in a moment, he disappeared into the distant sky. What is she laughing about? Xiaohua looked at Daoist Witch in confusion and said, she doesn't have a communication talisman. The Xiaoyu continent is so big. Where are we going to find her? Do you still need to find her? Daoist Witch said with a smile, just let her find you. Seeing Daoist Witch's gaze fall on his left hand, Xiaohua touched his nose and blinked his eyes, saying, that's right. With this Permitha, Zhang Jie will come whenever he is called. Why do I need to leave a communication talisman? After saying that, the proud Xiaohua kept the clear water bottle in his Naiwan palace. Fellow Daoist, are we still going back to the Huda stronghold? Daoist Witch looked around and asked. Don't. When Xiaohua thought of Ji-man's white hair in front of the Huda stronghold, his face was full of worry, we can't revive Xian. Why should we go back? Seeing Ji-man cry for no reason, we are also worried. Daoist Witch sighed, that's right. Everyone has different opportunities. Even if we put in the same amount of effort, the rewards might not be the same. Ziming sacrificed a lot for Zai, and Ji-man also sacrificed a lot for Xian. However, Zai was revived, but Xian can't be revived. Moreover, Xian was possessed by the demons. Even his soul is incomplete. He might not be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. We can't tell this to Ji-man, that may be the case, but don't forget. Xiaohua said solemnly, Zai sacrificed himself for his sister. It's filial piety. The Huda great god only used I to fulfill Ziming's dream. What about Xian? Even if Ji-man cried and went blind, the Huda great god might not care about him. Daoist Witch nodded and said, we don't know what happened to Xian when he was alive. Perhaps, he was too weak, so the demons took advantage of him. We can only think from the positive side. Xiaohua said with a smile, but it's already a fact. What's the point of talking about it now? Let's leave the Million Meng Mountains first before we discuss where to go. Aren't we going directly to the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks? Daoist Witch asked curiously. Are we going to push down the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks? Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Daoist Witch. Those are the Taiching sect's peaks. We don't have any evidence to push them down. What's the difference between that and robbing someone's home? Hehe, that's true. There are also Taiching sect disciples cultivating on the peaks. Daoist Witch replied embarrassedly. Xiaohua said to Daoist Witch while flying, actually, I feel that I'm quite cowardly sometimes. I'm already the supreme being of the human race, but I still have to be cautious when doing things. If it were Zhang Qingxiao, she would definitely rush up and push them down regardless of the consequences. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.